subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Mundo. His combat experience and combat skills are really terrifying. This is, of course, because Uehara Shiraha did not use various system capabilities. He would not use these capabilities. After all, the purpose of Uehara Shiraha's battle with Asido is to learn these combat experiences and combat skills. This aspect is a shortcoming. However, now is the best opportunity to make up for it. After the battle, Uehara Shiraha closed his eyes and rested in the cave, while secretly releasing the Shadow Clone in the splitting void space. Just now, the Shadow Clone saw the battle between the two. Every time Uehara Shiraha absorbed the memory of a Shadow Clone, it was equivalent to reviewing this high-intensity battle from another angle. Before, he did not have time to practice carefully. Now that he has time and opportunity, Uehara Shiraha is not short time. So, he devoted himself to the battle with Asido. 10 days passed in a blink of an eye. Asido, who had always looked arrogant, looked at the sharp blade on his neck and showed an incredible expression again. This expression was exactly the same as when he first met Uehara Shiraha. Until now, he couldn't believe that Uehara Shiraha really surpassed him. After all, 10 days ago, Asido could still suppress Uehara Shiraha with his advantages in experience and skills. But now, no matter how hard he tried, he was at a disadvantage. It was as if Uehara Shiraha had used only 10 days to eliminate the experience gap of hundreds of years. This growth rate is a demon. Therefore, Asido said sincerely, "You have surpassed me in all aspects. You are a genius." "Don't say that. I have also learned a lot from you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have improved so fast." After saying that, Uehara Shiraha took back Splitting Void. The practice of these days has once again enhanced Uehara Shiraha's strength. When they parted, Uehara Shiraha left a few bottles of good wine for Asido, and then left in style. From beginning to end, Uehara Shiraha did not ask Asido whether he wanted to return to Siriidi, because he already knew the answer. For Asido, staying here can prove that those companions existed. Therefore, Asido will never leave this place. Looking at Uehara Shiraha's back, Asido had a complicated expression. Then, he turned around and prepared to continue killing the Hollow. After knowing Uehara Shiraha, Asido felt that his previous efforts were not in vain. At least he helped this Shinigami with amazing talent. Although it was just a little help, he was also very satisfied. In a luxurious private room, Uehara Shiraha, who returned to the expeditionary headquarters, completed today's daily tasks again. Reiatsu +1, 7 flashes +1. In an instant, a warm current ran through his limbs. Uehara Shiraha could feel that his Reiatsu had improved to a certain extent. Mundo has a higher concentration of spirit particles than Siriidi, and Shinigami grows faster. Coupled with the system's rewards, Uehara Shiraha's growth is naturally faster. While thinking, he opened the character panel and took a look. Name: Uehara Shiraha. Position: 7th seat of the first team Reiatsu. 3rd class spiritual power, captain level. Zampicut, Splitting Void, Shurkai. Zampicut, captain level white hits. Captain level kid. Captain level Shuimpa. Captain level abilities. 1. Shadow Clone Technique, B-class ability, Mastered 2. Stand, White Album, S-class ability, Mastered 3. Breathing Technique, Sun Breathing, B-class ability, Grandmaster 4. Angel Power, Universal Barrier, S-class ability, Proficient 5. Magic Move, 7 flashes, A-class ability, Proficient. Items: 1. Disguise Glasses, B-class item, Kryptonian Creation. 2. 5 Thunder Curse, C-class item, Cultivation Talisman. 3. Death Gloves, D-class item, Extraordinary Creation. 4. Horse Charm, A-class item, Magic Creation. The current panel looks much more comfortable. All the skills of Zankankazu have reached the captain level, and they're the kind of captain level that is stable and flawless. With this basic panel, he can beat Shikamaru Kenshin. Not to mention, Uehara Shiraha has various powerful abilities. For Shinigami, Ryatsu is the foundation. Without the foundation, even if the combat power is strong, it is difficult to last. Of course, if you want to get along in the Shinigami world, in addition to the deep Ryatsu, you must at least have a unique skill. The most invincible is the all-rounder who is comprehensive and invincible in all aspects, like Aizen. Uehara Shiraha is taking this path. Others only have one unique skill, but he wants to master 18 unique skills, all of which are grandmasters, without any shortcomings. Therefore, Uehara Shiraha's plan for the future is very simple. That is, to do more special tasks and brush up more proficiency. After a long time, he will naturally be invincible. Just then, Uehara Shiraha heard a knock on the door. Chapter 46 Emergency Rescue. Fighting the tier-level Minos Grande. When Uehara Shiraha walked out of the room, he saw Kayaraka Shunsui with an unruly smile and Ayase Nanao with a somewhat uneasy expression. What happened? Seeing the posture of the two, Uehara Shiraha knew that something bad had happened. Kayaraka Shunsui explained the current situation very calmly. There is a problem with an intelligence point, and Captain Suifeng went to investigate. Just now, the technicians of the Technology Development Bureau detected that Captain Suifeng's Ryatsu had a strong fluctuation, and it was suspected that Bankai was opened. Captain Suifeng is currently out of contact. I have sent a message to Captain Zaraki for support. For safety reasons, you'd better go too. The calm appearance of the two also soothed Ayase Nanao's uneasiness. Hearing the news brought by Kayaraku Shunsui, Uehara Shiraha's heart moved. As early as when those Jillians gathered inexplicably to attack the 11th Division, he knew that someone was playing tricks. Now Suifeng was ambushed, which further proved his idea. However, this is also a good opportunity to practice. These days, Jillian in the Minos Grande forest can no longer provide him with too much experience points. His apparent strength has already surpassed the level of ordinary captains, so it doesn't matter if he reveals a little bit of his strength. So, for this mission, he did not refuse and directly said, "Prepare the wine and wait for me to come back." Looking at Uehara Shiraha leaving Shunpa, the worry on Ayase Nanao's face gradually turned into determination, pride, and a little unwillingness. This time, she did not ask to fight with Uehara Shiraha, because Ayase Nanao has already understood that she is not qualified to set foot in Uehara Shiraha's world now. "Nanao, you are very unwilling, right?" "Actually, I can understand." Kayaraku Shunsui held up his bamboo hat and said, "This is war. No one is innocent, and no one can stay out of it. But I believe that Brother Baiyu will definitely be able to guide return." At this time, in the endless desert, Zaraki Kenpachi was carrying Zampicut at full speed. Wherever he passed, layers of yellow sand were raised. Along the way, it was like a yellow dragon rushing around. While running wildly, Zaraki Kenpachi confirmed again, "Yichiryu, are you sure it's this direction? Can I really trust your so-called intuition?" "Of course, Aegean." Kusajishi Yichiru on his back patted his chest and said confidently, "This direction must be the shortcut. We will definitely be able to get to the battlefield as quickly as possible. This time, Zayu will definitely not get ahead." Haha. Thinking that he could finally chop down a powerful opponent this time, Zaraki Kenpachi stepped harder, and his whole body exuded a terrifying momentum. Occasionally, some blind hollows popped up, but they were crushed by Zaraki Kenpachi's murderous Ryatsu and turned into spirit particles and dissipated. At this time, Suifeng was already covered in wounds, and blood stained the white captain's Haori she was wearing. She looked at the blue-skinned, four-handed, human-shaped hollow in front of her. Around the four-handed Su, there were three strange-looking Ajuchas waiting for an opportunity to block Suifeng's escape route. Suifeng gritted his teeth, desperately trying to squeeze out the last bit of his strength. In the next instant, the space rippled, and the figure of the four-handed humanoid hollow disappeared. Ring. Suifeng was no stranger to Minos Grande's unique high-speed movement. But now her Ryatsu was almost exhausted, her spiritual sense and body became dull, and she could not lock the opponent's position at the first time. In an instant, the four-handed hollow appeared behind Sui Feng, and the palm like a claw tore Sui Feng's death suit and was ready to deal a fatal blow. At this moment, Sui Feng felt the breath of death. She wanted to Shunpa dodge, but found that her body was extremely heavy, and an inexplicable force bound her Ryatsu. While Sui Feng tried her best to condense Ryatsu to defend against the enemy's next attack, she roared in her heart, "I am the captain of the second team, Sui Feng. I want to surpass that person. How can I die in such a place? Shinigami, your power has been sealed by my ability. Don't make any more meaningless struggles." The other three arms of the four-handed hollow condensed Black Zero. He planned to use a killing move far superior to ordinary Zero to directly solve this difficult Shinigami. Just when Sui Feng was about to use some forbidden technique to die with the opponent, a burning breath broke through the air. The sky-high flames, accompanied by the cold and shining blade, slashed towards Minos Grande's head. The terrifying slash and Ryatsu broke through the space and completely enveloped the four-handed hollow who was performing the Black Zero. The knife light flashed, the flames rose, and a figure Shunpa came and stood in front of Sui Feng. At the same time, Minos Grande moved and fled quickly from the flames and knife light. Sui Feng, who was saved from a desperate situation, looked up and saw a familiar figure slowly condensing in front of her. Her pupils shrank. It turned out to be him. This guy's strength has become stronger. Uehara Shiraha, who came from Shunpa, ignored Sui Feng's complicated expression and looked at the four-handed hollow not far away and said, "You can dodge my sword, and your nerve detection and resonant rotation are very good. You are worthy of being a Vasto Hollow. But you have finally evolved to the top of Hollow. Why are you in a hurry to commit suicide?" A Hollow can evolve into a low-level Minos Grande Jillian by absorbing the Ryatsu and power of 100 Hollows. There are some special individuals who have awakened self-awareness among Jillian. These individuals can be promoted to Ajuchas after devouring 100 of their own kind. Similarly, Ajuchas can also evolve into the top Minos Grande Vasto Lord by devouring and fusing with each other. But the premise is that their spirit body is not seriously damaged, and such promotion conditions are very harsh. After experiencing the cruel elimination of thousands of troops and horses walking on a single plank bridge, Ajuchas can evolve into a Vasto-level Minos Grande. For Minos Grande like this, ordinary captains can no longer suppress it alone, and they need the combined strength of two captains to suppress it. However, Vasto Hollows are rational, and there is no danger of degeneration. So if it wasn't for special circumstances, a Vashal wouldn't be idle and ambush the Shinigami captain, even if the soul of the Shinigami captain was very tempting to them. In an instant, a bespectacled face with a warm smile appeared in Uehara Shiraha's mind. "Be careful, this Vashal is not right." Sui Feng endured the pain and reminded, "His ability can seal Ryatsu." Just now, after coming here, Sui Feng felt that her Ryatsu was a little out of control. In addition, the opponent had more people and more power, so she was defeated quickly. After saying that, Sui Feng retreated and tried her best to recover Ryatsu and physical strength. Chapter 47-5 Swirling Dragons of Destruction. A hot bath in the Hueco Mundo Desert. The Uehara Shiraha confronted the four hollows with a calm face. At this time, the four-handed hollow also looked at Uehara Shiraha with cold eyes. This Shinigami is wrong. Just now, he felt a fatal threat from the opponent's slash and flames. So, this hollow would launch the ring to escape in time. It is hard to imagine that the low-intensity Ryatsu could threaten him. He's at the top of the hollow, with the top steel skin and high-speed regeneration ability. At this time, the three Ajuchas behind the four-handed hollow, who were originally full of confidence, showed a look of horror and exclaimed, "Lord Valdez, your arm. It is impossible that it is just an ordinary sword, but it has such power. Why didn't the Master's high-speed regeneration take effect?" At this time, the four-handed hollow looked down belatedly and then his pupils shrank. One of his arms on his lower abdomen had turned to ashes at some point, and it hadn't recovered yet. Four-handed Vaxu immediately checked his own condition. It turned out that not only his high-speed regeneration ability was suppressed, but even his own abilities were affected to a certain extent. His pupils shrank again. Just one knife has such power. If I had reacted a little slower just now. Thinking of this, the four-handed hollow looked at Uehara Shiraha with more vigilance and said coldly, "Shinigami, I am Admiral Valdez, the Berrigan vanguard of the Lord of the Night Palace. I am here to destroy you Shinigami by order of His Majesty. Now report your name and say your last words." Uehara Shiraha, the seventh seat of the first team. Uehara Shiraha looked up and looked around and said calmly, "Is this the confidence that you dare to ambush the captain of the Shinigami? The barrier that isolates the sound seals Ryatsu and his own strange ability. What about Sailaporo? Why doesn't he dare to come out?" He saw at a glance that the surrounding barrier was different from the Shinigami's kid barrier. This is not a certain ability or spell, but a technical means. Combined with Uehara Shiraha's understanding of several Watt-level Minos Grande, he immediately thought of the pervert pink-haired scientist. This is the benefit of foresight. He always has an absolute advantage in intelligence. Suefeng, the narrator, also remembered something and exclaimed, "Berrigan? Sailaporo? You are the remnants of the invasion of Soul Society 100 years ago." She also saw this record by chance. 100 years ago, a hollow who claimed to be Berrigan invaded Rukongai and was killed by the 7th generation Kenpachi, Kuyashiki Kenpachi at that time. Later, another hollow led by the hollow class Minos Grande, Sailaporo, invaded Rukongai again and was also repelled by the 7th generation Kenpachi Kuyashiki. After that battle, the powerful 7th generation Kenpachi was killed by Zaraki Suya. Zaraki Suya thus became the 8th generation Kenpachi. When Suefeng thought about fighting these old monsters who became famous 100 years ago, he became more and more anxious to recover his Ryatsu and physical strength. At this moment, in a secret base deep in the desert, Luo Jia, who was petite and black-haired and looked harmless, whispered, "Lord Sailaporo, do we really want to cooperate with that Shinigami? It seems that he wants to harm your majesty." Although that Shinigami provided the information of invading Shinigami, he was too mysterious, which made Luo Jia very worried. "For me, it doesn't matter who is the master of the Palace of Night. I just want to continue my research." Sailaporo looked at the screen with excitement, and thanks to the information provided by that guy, I was able to get 2 excellent experimental materials at one time. With these 2 Shinigami captains as samples, my Nagase Insil technology will definitely be more perfect. Thinking of the disastrous defeat 100 years ago, Sailaporo's face became very ugly. He can tolerate the lack of strength, but he must improve the technical defects. So even though Sailaporo knew that the Shinigami who pretended to be a ghost had no good intentions, he still didn't mind cooperating with him. While thinking, Sailaporo suppressed the instinctive impulse to fight in person and shouted, "Gulance, don't make trouble." He and his brother, Ilfert Gulans, were both devoted to research and fought on the battlefield, killing countless people. They accidentally created a Minos Grande and were devoured by it. The souls of the 2 combined to devour the soul of Minos Grande, thus becoming a super Vasto Lord. However, the 2 pursued different paths, so sometimes it was very troublesome. This was also a problem that troubled Sailaporo for a long time, making it impossible for him to devote himself to his beloved technology research. After hearing what Uehara Shiraha said, Valdez's face changed. "You actually know the reputation of Lord Sailaporo, but who allowed you to call the Lord by his name?" At this time, Sailaporo had not separated himself from his brother's spirit and was still the super Vasto Lord, qualified to become a Zero Blade. Therefore, even Vaxu respected the powerful Sailaporo. "Your arm is recovered. Can we start?" Uehara Shiraha pointed out Vax's intention to delay time. He didn't care about it. He just wanted to see the restraining effect of the breath of the sun on Vaxu. As he spoke, Uehara Shiraha slowly walked towards him. At this time, Valdez, whose arm had slowly regenerated, grinned. "Do you think I'm waiting for my arm to recover? No, I'm waiting for you to step into the death trap. My ability is not only to block, but also to release." After speaking, he clapped his right hand, and a thunderous sound came out his hand. A strange cylinder composed of white cocoon silk suddenly appeared, and then spewed terrifying flames at Uehara Shiraha. In the blink of an eye, a large amount of flames formed 5 vivid fire dragons and rushed towards Uehara Shiraha. The flames soared, the fire was fierce, burning everything and burning everything. In a moment, 5 fire dragons surrounded Uehara Shiraha and were about to burn him to ashes. Valdez was extremely pleased and clapped his hands and laughed. "Shinigami, how is it? It feels bad to be burned to ashes by fire, right?" Valdez was sure of victory at this time. He was very confident in his own strength, plus the terrifying trap set by Lord Sailaporo. The 2 Shinigami were doomed. Suifeng's face changed drastically when she saw this scene, and she exclaimed, "Uehara Shiraha, get out of the way." She was experienced and could tell at a glance that this fire move was the top had 99 swirling dragons of destruction. At the critical moment, Suifeng didn't have time to think about why a Vashal could master the top had that ordinary Shinigami captains couldn't use. She moved her body and wanted to support. However, at this moment, Uehara Shiraha's powerful voice came from the flames. "Of course, you are the one who has the most say in what it feels like to be burned to ashes. This small fire is only good enough for a hot bath or a sauna." Chapter 48, Vasto Lore, that's it? Hearing this voice, Suifeng and Valdez were stunned and looked at the sea of fire. In the flames, Uehara Shiraha looked relaxed, completely ignoring the flames around him. Suifeng opened her eyes wide. Even though she was far away, she still felt the rolling heat in the air. Shinigami's body is very fragile. How'd he do it? Why did this guy's methods exceed her imagination every time? At this time, the 3 Ajuchas who had cheered loudly were also shocked and dared not say anything. Such a terrible flame, they dared not touch it. This Shinigami could ignore it completely, which was a bit too terrible. Valdez was even more shocked. Just now, Valdez saw clearly that this Shinigami was engulfed by these terrifying flames without any defense. In such a flame, even if he had steel skin and high-speed regeneration, it would be impossible for him to be safe. In this case, how did this Shinigami survive? At this time, Uehara Shiraha in the flames slightly raised his mouth. "Your flame is worthy of being called 5 swirling dragons of destruction. It's really funny. It's just a degraded replica. But this trap just restrains my ability. It must be a backup left by Sailaporo. This 5 swirling dragons of destruction is obviously made by Nagase in silk. The black technology Nagase in silk developed by Sailaporo can record the Ryatsu and change rules of the spirit body. Therefore, whether it is the moves of Shinigami, Hollow, or Quincy, Nagase in silk can reproduce them. Uehara Shiraha is still a little interested in this magical thing. How do you know this? Valdez was dumbfounded. He felt like he was completely seen through. However, he immediately cheered up and urged the Nagase in silk again, releasing a more powerful flame. Suddenly, the surrounding space shook, the flames ran wild, and the flames covered Uehara Shiraha again. At the same time, Valdez also condensed the black Zero and deployed his own abilities, ready to deal with Uehara Shiraha at once. Originally, when fighting Shinigami, Vashal had an absolute physical advantage. But now Valdez didn't dare to fight Uehara Shiraha in close combat. The opponent's terrifying flames restrained him too much. At this time, Suifeng could only retreat further away and not drag Uehara Shiraha's feet. She looked at the flames and muttered to herself, "The power of this flame can become stronger, worthy of being had number 99. She also noticed the hidden danger behind the flames and hurriedly reminded, "Be careful of that Vashal's Zero and his abilities." Just as several fire dragons flew over again, Uehara Shiraha activated the abilities of the White Album and the universal barrier at the same time. In an instant, the power of the 5 swirling dragons of destruction decreased a lot and turned into 5 fire snakes. Uehara Shiraha reached out and grabbed the fire snake that was wrapped around him and squeezed it hard. The originally invisible flame seemed to have become a solid substance in Uehara Shiraha's hands and was directly crushed. The next second, he drew his sword and slashed the flying Black Zero. After taking all the opponent's attacks without any danger, Uehara Shiraha's eyes became fierce. Now it's your turn to taste my flame. At this time, Valdez saw Uehara Shiraha's figure suddenly disappear in the firelight. Ring. He retreated without hesitation, while expanding his own detection nerves to the maximum range. At the same time, the 3 Ajuchas also condensed Zero and attacked Uehara Shiraha. At this time, Uehara Shiraha's body was condensed with Ryatsu, with amazing defense, plus the universal barrier that could block all methods. The Zero of the Intermediate Hollow was not even qualified to give him a scrape. After 2 Shuanpa, Uehara Shiraha had killed in front of Valdez. Seeing Uehara Shiraha killing him, Valdez showed a grim smile. As long as this Shinigami continues to move forward and cooperate with the power of the barrier, his ability can be maximized. At that time, this Shinigami can only become a lamb to be slaughtered. The body of the Hollow is equivalent to the Zanpakuto of the Shinigami. The Hollow is equivalent to the Shinigami who has opened the Bankai, and naturally has some powerful abilities. For example, Barrigan's Aging Breath, Sister Haribel's ability to create and control water flow, Uncle Wolf, Kotaya, Stark's Infinite Zero. In comparison, Valdez's ability to block Ryatsu can only be said to be average. But now, with the blessing of the barrier, its power instantly increased several times, and it can even block Captain Shinigami's Ryatsu in close contact. Just when Valdez thought his plan was successful, Uehara Shiraha stopped at the edge of the opponent's ability range. If he can't even see through such a trick, then hasn't he practiced in vain these days? Without hesitation, Uehara Shiraha swung Splitting Void, and the sun, breathing 12 swords directly, slashed at Valdez. The flames rose, and a flame enveloped Valdez. Facing the incoming flames and blades, Valdez did not dare to neglect this time, and opened his own defense and ability to the maximum. Instantly, an invisible blocking force first broke the flames, and then continued to roll forward. However, Valdez's full-strength ability was in vain. After one slash, Uehara Shiraha disappeared without even looking at the result. After Uehara Shiraha reappeared, the 3 Ajuchas looked at each other, and then pounced on Uehara Shiraha in tacit understanding. These 3 Ajuchas also came from the Palace of the Night. When they were free, Barrigan would let the Ajuchas fight each other for fun. Therefore, these 3 Ajuchas were used to fighting and dared to fight to the death. Facing the sudden sneak attack, Uehara Shiraha's spiritual sense moved, turned around, and slashed with a slash. The flames of the breath of the sun engulfed the attacking Ajuchas. The moment he drew his sword, he had already disappeared. Had 4 white thunder. After landing, Uehara Shiraha attacked another Ajuchas that attacked suddenly. A white lightning directly penetrated the mask of the Ajuchas. Had number 4 is even more powerful than had number 60 in Uehara Shiraha's hands. Then he raised his right hand to block the last Ajuchas' right arm, which was like a sharp blade. Instantly, he pressed his right hand forward, and a terrifying Ryatsu burst out, and a lightning-like white hits directly smashed the enemy's heart. In a few breaths, the 3 Ajuchas that attacked by surprise, one was fully mature, one was brainy, and one was laughing heartily. Seeing this scene, Valdez turned around and fled without hesitation. It was not easy to evolve in a Vasto Lord. He didn't want to die in such a place. Vasto Lord, who is at the top of all hollows, is just this. Uehara Shiraha looked disappointed. He now knew why this Vasto did not appear as Arankar in the Arankar chapter. His character was too bad, and Aizen probably didn't look down on him at all. Shaking his head, Uehara Shiraha chased after the other party with a Shunpa. Chapter 49. The taste of Waxu is really good. Suifeng didn't react until Uehara Shiraha and Vaxa disappeared from her sight. She was extremely shocked by Uehara Shiraha's smooth and flawless fighting process. Facing the siege of Four Minos Grande, Uehara Shiraha was not panicked at all, and all his countermeasures were impeccable. Such fighting experience, fighting skills, and skillful Zhenquan would not be possible without hundreds of years. However, this man did it all in just 20 years. How can such a monster be surpassed? The cold moonlight sprinkled on thousands of sand dunes, forming a desolate and lonely doomsday picture scroll. In such an atmosphere, even the crescent moon on the horizon faintly revealed an ominous atmosphere. At this moment, a heavy footstep broke the silence. Valdez, who was running for his life, used his strongest strength, and at the same time, the exploration nerves continued to spread. Vax's exploration nerves were more sensitive than Shinigami's spiritual perception. At the same level, Xianghuan's speed is also better than Shinigami Shunpa. Therefore, Valdez believes that he will be able to successfully escape the pursuit of the Shinigami, as long as he can escape to that adult. Reincarnation. However, the next moment, Uehara Shiraha suddenly rushed from behind. In an instant, the 12 sword forms of sun breathing were used in turn like a wild dance of the flame demon. The 12 sword forms were connected into a dance of the fire god that burned everything. In a critical moment, Valdez used his strongest power to spread his own ability. He roared, "How can a mere Shinigami kill me?" However, Uehara Shiraha's Shunpa and blade were too fast, even exceeding the reaction limit of the Vashan's nerve detection. In just a moment, Valdez's figure was shrouded by the reincarnation sword dance. The sky-high flames reflected the sky red. Valdez used his innate ability and Ryatsu again to disperse the flames, and immediately Xianghuan left. Under full force, the Ryatsu around him was like a huge rock, extremely heavy. In this state, Valdez's speed and defense will be at their strongest. But even a Watt-level Minos Grande can't always maintain this state. However, even so, he still didn't completely avoid this reincarnation. After Xianghuan left, Valdez completely lost consciousness on the right half of his body. His right half of his body was completely burnt, and there was a disgusting smell of burnt in the air, like melted low-quality plastic. Such an enemy is really too difficult. Amazing defense. Every sword is deadly. How to fight this? Valdez, who was not strong in fighting spirit, almost collapsed 300. The only thing he can do now is to gather all the Ryatsu and continue to release abilities and Black Zero. Facing the opponent's Zero and ability, Uehara Shiraha, splitting void waved, flying Will Yanyan, ice ball. In an instant, the man followed the sword, the flames rose, and the ice froze. The world of ice and fire. Even Valdez, who burst out with full force, can't completely stop it. The left side of this tile-class Minos Grande was frozen, and the right side continued to be burned by flames. Taking this opportunity, Uehara Shiraha used the sun-breathing 12 sword form again. The terrifying 13th-style reincarnation sword form once again burned the entire sky. This time, Uehara Shiraha used all his strength, and the powerful Ryatsu penetrated all of Valdez's defenses. A pillar of fire that reached the sky completely enveloped Valdez. After the flames, Valdez, a Minos Grande, fell to the ground helplessly. Uehara Shiraha stepped forward and calmly finished off the enemy. Looking at the dark Valdez, who was not in human form, Uehara Shiraha shook his head. As a Vastu, you have a good foundation. If you were a little more motivated, you would have a chance to escape. This Valdez has a good panel and remarkable abilities, but his will is too poor. In addition, his sun breathing is indeed very restraining to these Vastu. So this battle ended in a whimper. Uehara Shiraha was a little disappointed. The current Hueco Mundo is really not good in every sense. Uehara Shiraha really didn't take these Vastus seriously, even Vastu. Sailaporo and Berrigan are very strong. But one of them is obsessed with research, and the other is obsessed with enjoyment. And they don't have the heart of a strong man at all. So the Byler ring is really not good. The one who can revive the glory of Hueco Mundo is Aizen. The fake king of Hueco Mundo, Barragan, only sent his men to their deaths, and he didn't even have a decent palace and a queen. The real king of Hueco Mundo, Aizen Suk, made bold innovations, broke the old system of Hueco Mundo, and introduced the more competitive and humane Espada system. Look at his big palace and his lowly subordinates. It's just like modern people beating up primitive people. At this time, Uehara Shiraha remembered Sailaporo's arrangement in the barrier. This guy's trap is so targeted, he should have obtained the detailed information of these Shinigami captains. And like the 99 had like 5 swirling dragons of destruction, ordinary Shinigami may not have heard of it, and most Shinigami captains cannot master it. One of the killer moves of this old silver coin Aizen is 5 swirling dragons of destruction. Therefore, Sailaporo is likely to have copied 5 swirling dragons of destruction from Aizen and obtained information. In other words, the two have already had contact. It seems that Aizen is ready to attack Hueco Mundo, otherwise he would not have designed this ambush. It is estimated that it will not take long for Hueco Mundo, the large Arrancar laboratory, to completely turn into the shape of Aizen. By then, there will be Arrancars everywhere. I hope those Arrancars will bring him some surprises. Apart from anything else, Uehara Shiraha is still quite curious about whether those tiles taste really good. After all, even Yawatch has specially made a bondage play, which should be good. Just when he was imagining the good times in the future, Uehara Shiraha heard a crisp bell sound, and the terrifying Ryatsu and murderous intent surged like the Yangtze River. Facing the sudden attack, Uehara Shiraha turned around and raised his hand to block it without thinking. Clang! A metallic collision sound was heard. Uehara Shiraha's right hand had blocked the attacking weapon from behind. At the same time, he looked up. He saw Zaraki Kenpachi with a ferocious face staring at him with his bloodthirsty one eye. At this time, Uehara Shiraha's right hand was firmly blocking the opponent's Zanpakuto, although the thin, curved, and even broken Zanpakuto in front of him did not look very good. But it was such a broken Zanpakuto that easily killed the previous generation of Onawa Castle Kenpachi. The Shinigami who knew about this knew how terrible the killing power of this Zanpakuto was. However, under the universal barrier and Ryatsu defense, Uehara Shiraha's hand that blocked Zaraki Kenpachi's chopping did not even produce a white spot. Seeing this incredible scene, Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, and ecstasy appeared in his one eye. It's great. That's how it should be. Facing the young Shinigami in front of him, the long-lost excitement and trembling made his body tremble slightly. The air was filled with murderous aura and fighting spirit, and it became anxious. Just when Zaraki Kenpachi was so excited that he couldn't control himself, a pink head popped out from his back, with big eyes, round face, and innocent face. This pink-haired lowly was the vice captain of the 11th Division, Kusajishi Ichiru. Looking at Uehara Shiraha, who was still calm in front of Zaraki Kenpachi, Kusajishi Ichiru clapped and cheered. So strong. Xiaoyu is so strong. As the vice captain of Zaraki Kenpachi, she cheered for her opponent. The reason is that Ichiru knew very well that for Zaraki Kenpachi, the happiest thing was to meet 10 powerful opponents who could fight life and death. Facing the fierce and crazy Zaraki Kenpachi, Uehara Shiraha looked relaxed. I know you're anxious, but don't be anxious. By the way, didn't you tell me to cut first last time? Why did you cut me first? Isn't that wrong? Hearing this, Zaraki Kenpachi did not hesitate, and tore open his Death Tyrant suit with his right hand, revealing his rock-like chest, and said with a smile, "Come on, use your strongest power to cut me as much as you want. This time I'll let you cut twice first, whether it's the neck, eyes, or vitals. It's up to you." That's what you said, the frozen time capsule. Uehara Shiraha didn't hesitate for a second, and drew his sword and swung it directly. The white album was activated, and the power of ultra-low temperature suddenly erupted. An endless whistle instantly bound up Zaraki Kenpachi's huge body. So an open-minded, smiling ice sculpture was made. A moment before the cold air arrived, Kusajishi Yachiro jumped away and then looked at Uehara Shiraha angrily. Xiao Yu, you can't bully Aegean like this. Got it. Uehara Shiraha waved his right hand directly, and an icicle directly covered Kusajishi Yachiro, freezing him. Looking at the ice sculptures of one big and one small shining in the moonlight, Uehara Shiraha nodded with satisfaction. A family should be neat and tidy. After saying that, he immediately ran away. Soon, accompanied by a sharp knife light and terrifying Ryatsu, the ice around Zaraki Kenpachi suddenly shattered. He looked at the direction where Uehara Shiraha left with one eye and cursed. A hole. Damn it. Zaraki Kenpachi was a little bit broken. The opponent's Zanpakuto ability has little damage to the body, but great damage to the mind. After being frozen, he can't fight as much as he wants, which is more painful than killing him. This ability is too disgusting. For the first time, Zaraki Kenpachi regretted wearing the blindfold to restrict his Ryatsu. Otherwise, he would not be frozen so easily. After cursing, he slashed with a knife and broke the ice around Kusajishi Yachiro. Xiaoyu, how annoying. After getting out of trouble, Kusajishi Yachiro was also sweet-mouthed, almost spitting out fragrance. She didn't like the feeling of freezing at all. Uehara Shiraha didn't know or care whether the two captains of the 11th Division were happy or not. Anyway, he was very happy now. There was endless wine on the table, and there was a beautiful girl behind him who was massaging him attentively. Now Ayase Nanao's face was full of collagen, pure and beautiful. While she used her little hands to massage Uehara Shiraha's shoulders and back, she secretly used some kid techniques. This, Uehara Shiraha took a breath of cold air and felt comfortable all over. He couldn't help but admire. Not bad. This massage technique has improved. After taking a sip of the wine, he carefully felt the exhilaration of the spirit power exploding in his body. Then, Uehara Shiraha changed the subject. But, Nanao, you have learned bad things, and you actually used the teacher as an experimental subject. The skills used by Ayase Nanao were very awkward, and it was obvious that they were used for the first time. This is because he felt that his teacher was thick-skinned and tough and was not afraid of being tossed. But it was true that Uehara Shiraha's unconscious Ryatsu was enough to resist Ayase Nanao's full-strength attack. Ayase Nanao's massage was indeed not good enough before, but now the strength is just right. Ayase Nanao behind him laughed secretly. Uehara Shiraha felt that Ayase Nanao had become a little silly now, and the serious Ayase Nanao in his impression was gradually fading away. But maybe this is the real Ayase Nanao. He also felt that this kind of Ayase Nanao was good and more lovely. At this time, Kairaka Shunsui was reporting the latest battle situation to Siriidii with a relaxed look. This Hueco Mundo expedition was a great harvest for him. His niece gained valuable experience and greatly increased her strength. Moreover, he could make great contributions without lying down. A tile-level Minos Grande plus 3 Ajuches. This contribution is not small. Kairaku Shunsui didn't care about promotion. He couldn't get promoted. However, it would be very good to exchange the credit for drinking. Just thinking about it makes me happy. In addition, the nails planted by the Tsunishiro family in the Shing army were also killed. Congratulations. And all this was brought by his good friend Uehara Shiraha. Not long after Siriidii, the first team captain's office. Except for Captain Jushiro, who took sick leave, the remaining captains of Godii, 13, gathered together. Soon, the writing team Shinigami of the secret mobile team handed the latest battle report to Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni. After reading the battle report, even the well-informed Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni was slightly stunned. Then, he handed the report to Chijur Sasakibe next to him. Chijur Sasakibe, with a head full of silver hair, took the battle report with a smile. Then his expression changed, and he read the battle report carefully again. And then he read it. Just now, Uehara Shiraha, the 7th seed of the first team, killed Vasto Lord alone and saved Suephone, the captain of the second team, and also eliminated 3 Ajuches during the period. Before that, Uehara Shiraha was still in the Minos Grande forest and eliminated countless Minos Grandes. The moment they heard the news, the expressions of several captains changed, and they were shocked. Before that, they had already performed that Uehara, you had the strength of the captain of the God of Light. However, even if it is a captain, it is very difficult to kill Vasto Lord-level Minos Grande by himself. The Watt-class Minos Grande has a better physique and ability than the ordinary Minos Grande. Moreover, this top-level Minos Grande is not only stronger than the ordinary Shinigami captain, but also has the same wisdom as ordinary people. Except for the strong ones like 7th-generation Kenpachi, who are valued by the Zero Division. Because of their strong combat power, ordinary captains can't suppress the Watt-class Minos Grande steadily. In the impression of all the captains, although Uehara Shiraha is a genius with some fame, his talent is not so strong. As a result, after going to Hueco Mundo, Uehara Shiraha's performance exceeded everyone's expectations. Ikamaru Jin, a genius in the same class as Uehara Shiraha, is now only a vice captain. You know, Uehara Shiraha took 6 years to graduate, and Ikamaru Jin only took 1 year to graduate. Therefore, Uehara Shiraha's sudden rise shocked all the captains. This speed of strength improvement is really incredible. Could it be that Bankai has awakened? Chapter 50. First Division, 3rd Seat, Uehara Shiraha. In the captain's office, the captain of the 7th Division, Kamimura Sajin, who was wearing a barrel helmet, waved his fist fiercely and shouted, "Well done, Uehara Shiraha." The captain really didn't make a mistake. He didn't think that much. He just thought that this was good news, proving that Captain Yamamoto didn't make a mistake. Aizen on the side was thoughtful. He had long expected that this Uehara Shiraha should have hidden his strength. However, he didn't expect it to be so deep, which was really interesting. This guy happened to be in Hueco Mundo. Maybe he could take the opportunity to kill some time and see if there were any new surprises. Tosin Kaname, the captain of the 9th Division, had a calm face, and it was impossible to guess his true thoughts from his face. Kuchiki Jinrei, the captain of the 6th Division, was in a trance, and the 4 words, "I want to retire," were almost written on his face. Kuratsuchi Mayuri, the acting captain of the 12th Division, sneered and said in a unique, sarcastic tone, "According to the Ryatsu fluctuations, Captain Suifeng had already activated Bankai before Uehara Shiraha made his move. How could a Shinigami who didn't activate Bankai kill a what-level Minos Grande? It's impossible to think about it. This kid must have just picked up an advantage. I heard that the Expeditionary Army Commander-in-Chief has a deep friendship with this Uehara Nanasai. Will it be?" Neri, who had just left the worm nest not long ago, was not too used to the Shinigami in Godei 13. He was quite happy to have a chance to argue. Kamimura Sajin glared at Kuratsuchi Mayuri. "Are you questioning the captain's judgment?" The good guy, Captain Aizen Suk of the 5th Division, immediately made a smooth talk. "Captain Kuratsuchi Mayuri's concerns are understandable, but I believe that Captain Kairaku will not falsely report the credit for Uehara Nanasai because of personal feelings." Kuratsuchi Mayuri and Kamimura Sajin had no objection to Aizen. The two stopped arguing at this step. The acting captain of the 3rd Division, Shooting Range Old Iron, did not hesitate to propose to the Captain General. "Captain General, Uehara Shiraha is more suitable for the position of captain of the 3rd Division than me. I propose that Hara Shiraha replace the acting captain of the broadcast team." In a hollow incident, the 3rd and 7th Divisions suffered great losses, especially the 9th Division, which was almost completely rebuilt. In this special period, Shooting Range Chitetsu had the opportunity to serve as the captain of the 3rd Division. However, he himself was not interested in this, and he thought he was not capable enough to serve as the captain. So seeing that Uehara Shiraha had made such a great contribution, Shooting Range Chitetsu could not wait to resign as the captain. Uehara Shiraha has not completed Bankai yet, and is not qualified to serve as the captain. Yamamoto Jinri Usai, Shigekuni's eyelids were not even pregnant. Of course, his words were just an excuse. Although generally speaking, Bankai is a hard condition for serving as the captain of Shinigami. But there are ways to circumvent this restriction, such as defeating the incumbent Kenpachi of the 11th Division, and then inheriting the title of Kenpachi and becoming the new captain of the 1st Division. And with Uehara Shiraha's qualifications, it is only a matter of time before he starts Bankai. In addition, the current situation is special, and there is a lack of captain candidates. So Uehara Shiraha can actually serve as the captain of the 3rd Division. However, Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni still rejected the proposal of the shooting range dry iron without hesitation. The reason is that he thinks Uehara Shiraha is like his beloved disciple Kairaka Shunsui, with an unstable mind. Such a genius still needs to be polished. Besides, the position of an acting captain is actually just like that. However, Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni also added an order. Promote Uehara Shikisai to the 3rd seat of the 1st Division, and let him be responsible for Hueco Mundo affairs in the future. Hearing this order, Sasakaib's expression was a bit complicated. He was very happy that a genius had emerged from the 1st Division. However, he felt a little pressure because Uehara Shiraha performed so well. Although no matter what, his position as the vice captain was as stable as a rock. However, Sasakaib still felt strange. He just didn't expect that one day he would feel pressure from Shinigami in his 20s. Then, Sasakaib smiled freely and thought to himself, no matter what, this time I can ridicule the 4th seed of Chonya. Ha ha ha. The next day, as the good news of the Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force killing the Washu spread, Uehara Shiraha's reputation once again resounded throughout the Siriidi. The Flower Street, which had become a little deserted due to the departure of the 2 main forces, also became lively again. A group of Shinigami officers and even vice captains were once again shocked and admired by Uehara Shiraha's strength, especially for those Shinigami from Rukongai. Uehara Shiraha is now the goal and role model. The nobles who originally did not take Uehara Shiraha seriously also took Hara Shiraha seriously. Even the Tsunoshiro family had to admit that a captain-level Shinigami was indeed a good sword. So making friends with a captain-level Shinigami is a sure-win business. At this time, Uehara Shiraha, the strongest genius of the Siriidi, also received the latest appointment. Congratulations, Brother Shiraha. Now you're the 3rd seed of the 1st team. In the expeditionary headquarters, Kairaka Shunsui handed the appointment letter to Uehara Shiraha and said mischievously, "How about it? Are you a little disappointed? If you listened to me and applied for the position of captain of the 3rd team, you might have put on the captain's Haori now. Captain is too tiring. Whoever wants to be it can do it. I don't want it. The 3rd seed is good enough." Uehara Shiraha doesn't have so much time to waste on the captain's position. Being a captain, you can still be lazy. After all, there is no clear position. It is too difficult to be a captain and still want to slack off. Moreover, as long as the strength is improved, the captain and the general captain are just empty titles. If Uehara Shiraha showed all his strength when the 1,000-year bloody war came, it is estimated that the desperate captains would say something like, "It's cold. Put on a captain's Haori to warm up your body." Kairaku Shunsui shook his head helplessly and said, "It's up to you, just be happy. Sometimes, I envy you for being able to do whatever you want. Thanks to you, the Expeditionary Force's predetermined goal has been almost completed, and it's time for the main force to retreat. But you, the 3rd captain, have to stay behind for the time being." Originally, they killed the Hollows to maintain the soul strength of Soul Society and Hueco Mundo at the same level, and also to protect the humans in the world. Now, after Uehara Shiraha's killing spree, the combat requirements have basically been met. The only thing left is to garrison Hueco Mundo to prevent any accidents. But when all the personnel evacuate, there is no need to do this. No wonder I was promoted, waiting for me here. Hearing Kairaku Shuinsue's words, Uehara Shiraha couldn't help but complain. Then he said bluntly, "It's okay to come to this damn place occasionally, but I don't want to stay here all the time. Compared with Siriidi, Hueco Mundo is boring to death. If it weren't for getting familiar with abilities and improving strength, Uehara Shiraha would never come here. Now that his strength has improved, he wants to move freely." Kairaku Shunsui adjusted his bamboo hat. I knew you didn't have the patience. But you don't need to stay here all the time. You just need to do the finishing work. With this title, you can recruit some good players. The last one, Kairaka Shunsui, is selfish. Uehara Shiraha can refuse the credit, and Ling Ting and the nobles can also turn a deaf ear. But Kairaka Shunsui will not treat his brothers badly. That's about right. As for manpower, I think those kids are good, so leave them to me. Uehara Shiraha doesn't care about ordinary Shinigami at all. He only wants talents. We're talents. Of course, technicians are talents. Look at Hijayaku and the Blood Sea Karatsuchi Mayuri and Urahara Kisuke during the Thousand-Year Blood War, and you will know the horror of scientific research power. Uehara Shiraha himself doesn't have the patience to do research and development, but it doesn't prevent him from gathering a group of technicians to work for him. He also experienced the happiness of Party A Dad. Brother Baiyu, you have a good vision. Kairaku Shunsui gave Uehara Shiraha a thumbs up and then sighed. If this goes on, the kid will only exist in name only. Although he said this, he felt in his heart, good death. Open the champagne. Kairaku Shunsui has long felt that except for Godai 13, other armed forces should not exist, so that those nobles will not be so arrogant. However, the Shinigami of Kid are really good and are rare talents. In the eyes of Kairaku Shunsui, it is better to give these people to Uehara Shiraha than to let Karatsuchi Mayuri get away with it. After all, whether it is a noble or an Izumi, Kairaku Shunsui thinks it is not good enough. So, Uehara Shiraha has a group of precious technicians. Hueco Mundo passes through the World Gate. Zaraki Kenpachi and Kusajishi Ichiru look at Uehara Shiraha with the eyes of a resentful woman. Uehara Shiraha smiled and said, "Don't look at me. If you miss me, you can come see me anytime. It's cold, so put on more clothes." Humph! Zaraki Kenpachi snorted coldly, carrying Zampiket and strode into the gate. "Thank you for your rescue before. I will find a chance to repay you." Suifeng's palm-sized pretty face was still cold. "But I will definitely surpass you." She was indeed very grateful for Uehara Shiraha's life-saving grace. But at the same time, Suifeng was really unwilling to give up and didn't want to admit defeat just like that. Although, she also knew that it was difficult to surpass this man. Uehara Shiraha admired Suifeng's daring love and hate, so she encouraged, "I am optimistic about you. Keep working hard, and you will have a chance to reach my current height in the next life." Actually, Uehara Shiraha's statement was very modest. It was not that his current strength was invincible, but Suifeng's performance in the future was really a bit horrible. Other people's rule-based abilities could defeat Ichigo in seconds. So why did the ability of the second-level ultimate skill disappear? Aizen's words, "The battle of Shinigami is the battle of Ryatsu," made Suzumabachi completely a decoration afterwards. This mouth was like a blessing. Uehara Shiraha suspected that the second-level ultimate skill might really just turn Ryatsu into poison. As for Suifeng's Bankai, he didn't even want to mention it. The style of painting collapsed, and it was unbearable. Suifeng, who was encouraged over there, said nothing, twisted his waist, and turned away. Behind her were only a few scattered Shing army personnel, and the previous batch of noble Shing army were all dead. After sending off the expeditionary force, Uehara Shiraha looked at the respectful original kid Shinigami and Ayase Nanao, who was full of expectations. Suddenly felt that this was not bad. This high and far away life was actually quite comfortable. Moreover, his public identity was not suitable for causing trouble in Siri-IDI, but it didn't matter in Hueco Mundo. As for daily tasks and luxury enjoyment, it was not a problem. Uehara Shiraha had already made an appointment with Kairaku Shunsui to meet at the old place in the Flower Street in the evening. Opening and closing the gate every time did consume a lot of resources, but since Godai 13 paid for it, he didn't care at all. The more Uehara Shiraha thought about it, the more he felt that it would be nice to have a career at Hueco Mundo. If he gets bored with Godai 13, he can switch to Aizen and become the Spada's father. The only problem is that Aizen has a low tolerance for Shinigami traitors. The only two Shinigami he killed were Tosin Kaname and Ikamaru Jin, who defected to him. It's really a bit outrageous that none of the other Shinigami who opposed him died. Mr. Uehara, what are our plans next? Ayase Nanao is now full of energy. She took the initiative to ask to stay to cooperate with Uehara Shiraha to finish the work. On the one hand, Ayase Nanao was reluctant to leave Uehara Shiraha and wanted to learn kid techniques from Uehara Shiraha. On the other hand, she felt that the work at Hueco Mundo was more meaningful. Uehara Shiraha said, without hesitation, "Next, your task is very heavy. You should first learn the knowledge of the gate with Kid. Then, strengthen the gate and the barrier of the base." He felt that it was a pity to give up rashly after finally gaining a foothold here and building a base. Anyway, anyone can come to Hueco Mundo to step on it, so it doesn't matter if he has a private base like this. That's right. Uehara Shiraha has regarded this base and the gate as his private property. Yes, Mr. Uehara. Ayase Nanao never compromised on Uehara Shiraha's orders and had no questions. Looking at the people who started to get busy, Uehara Shiraha was also in a rare mood and prepared to take some action. As Aizen said, Shinigami is too slow. It is obvious that Hueco Mundo can be better planned to ensure the survival rate of Shinigami, but Hueco Mundo has been left alone. Fortunately, Barrigan is an otaku with no ambitions. If he had worked hard like the wise rulers in history and promoted Hueco Mundo industrialization well, it would be difficult for them to industrialize with these guys. The internal friction of the hollow is too serious. As long as the mask is damaged or the spirit body is seriously damaged, it will lose the possibility of evolution. The direction of its evolution can only be limited to survival abilities, such as steel skin and high-speed regeneration. With Aizen's Jayaku, the abilities of Arankar can be flourishing. But for the time being, these have nothing to do with Uehara Shiraha. He just wants to use this base to do something, kill time, and improve his strength. To achieve this goal, Uehara Shiraha personally circled the base and stabilized the Kid barrier. By the way, he also pasted the 5 Thunder Curse talisman that he had treasured for a long time at the core of the barrier. Although the 5 Thunder Curse talisman is only a sea-level item, the Thunder method has the effect of subduing demons and suppressing evil. Like the sun breathing, it has a special attack against the hollow. 5 Thunders will destroy even Ajuchas. In addition, Uehara Shiraha specially set up a barrier to power this talisman. So this 5 Thunder Curse can be reused and is not afraid of countermeasures, which is much stronger than ordinary barriers. Finally, looking at the barrier in front of him flashing with blue electric sparks, Uehara Shiraha clapped his hands in satisfaction. Seeing that the time was almost up, he called Ayase Nanao to return to Siriidii together. Before leaving, Uehara Shiraha told the Kid Shinigami that no one could enter or exit the gate without his secret words and orders. Uehara Shiraha knew that this move would definitely not be able to prevent Aizen, but it was to declare sovereignty. This order indicated that from now on, this base was his territory. Uehara Shiraha, in a good mood, came to the Flower Street and attended the celebration banquet specially prepared for him by Kaiaraka Shunsui. Uehara Shiraha, who had not appeared for a long time, was like a king returning, and there were laughter and joy wherever he went. Uehara Shiraha's state remained the same, and he did not disappoint the expectations of the courtesans. The courtesans come and go, but Uehara remains forever. This legend continues. Chapter 51. The new king of Hueco Mundo, Uehara Shiraha, who built a high wall after the heavy sleep. The drunk Kaiaraka Shunsui handed a letter and a contract to Uehara Shiraha. This is a gift and an apology letter sent by the Iwama family. Iwama. Uehara Shiraha had never heard of this family. Kaiaraka Shunsui explained, "The Iwama now who offended you last time was from this family. The Iwama family has always been a subordinate family of the Tsuneyashiro family. Because of this relationship, Iwama now also became the guard of the Tsuneyashiro family. The Tsuneyashiro family is showing you goodwill. Over the years, he has caused trouble for the Tsuneyashiro family." Kaiaraka Shunsui is very clear about the ways and means of these big families. Of course, He didn't believe that a mere Iwama now would jump to the first team and 7 seats without anyone's order. Okay, Uehara Shiraha shrugged. Uehara Shiraha almost forgot about the last time. At that time, Naoya Iwama and 2 Shing soldiers were frozen into ice by him. From beginning to end, Uehara Shiraha did not take this insignificant little person to heart. He first opened the letter and read it. In the letter, the head of the Iwama family first apologized for the mistakes of Naoya Iwama, a member of the clan. Then he stated that everything was Naoya Iwama's personal behavior and had nothing to do with the Iwama family and the Tsuneshiro family. I can only say that this taste is too right. Regular workers cannot make mistakes, and those who make mistakes are temporary workers. Even if it is a different world, it is a familiar recipe and a familiar taste. However, Uehara Shiraha does not care much. No matter whether there is a problem with the Tsuneshiro family, as long as the people are gone, there must be no problem. Uehara Shiraha is not a judge and does not care about the truth. He only needs to make sure that these people cannot threaten him. So before, he did not hesitate to kill a member of the main family of the Tsuneshiro family. 3. To divert attention. As for the little property given by the Iwama family, Uehara Shiraha didn't take it seriously. A little bit of leftovers, even beggars would find it shabby. He did spend a lot. After all, the red light district was a place of money, no matter how much money was spent. Moreover, Uehara Shiraha knew how to eat, drink, and have fun. And since he could eat, drink, and have fun, he spent money even more like water. However, money was something that nobles had plenty of, so if they didn't have it, they could just spend it. Noticing Uehara Shiraha's disdainful expression, Kayaraka Shunsui smiled and poured a glass of wine for Uehara Shiraha and also poured a glass for himself. He had expected this result long ago. It was wishful thinking for these great nobles to use ordinary means to bribe their little brother. Uehara Shiraha didn't waste any words. He picked up the wine glass and gestured to Kayaraku Shunsui. He drank it all in one gulp and then said, I think it's okay for the Siriidii to keep some backup in Hueco Mundo, so I plan to put some effort in the Hueco Mundo base. No problem. I will definitely help if I can. Kayaraku Shunsui understood what Uehara Shiraha meant in a second. He thought about it and felt that Uehara Shiraha's suggestion was very good. For Hueco Mundo, Soul Society was too lax before, and at least they should strengthen their vigilance. Otherwise, if something went wrong, they would not have time to react. It's a pity that those people above are short-sighted, arrogant, and corrupt, and they can't see the disadvantages at all. Even if they know, they don't care. In a few words, the two finalized a new plan for Hueco Mundo. Then there was a toast, and a new round of carnival began. The next day, while he had time, Uehara Shiraha first completed his daily tasks and gained 2 attribute points, feeling very happy. Then, he submitted the idea of opening a Siriidii talent training base in Hueco Mundo. He suggested that all Shinigami graduates be taken to Hueco Mundo for a visit. This would stimulate their potential and improve the overall strength of the new Shinigami. After that, Uehara Shiraha took Ayase Nanao to start the construction of the Hueco Mundo base. In fact, it was just about making some efforts around barriers and concealment. With his limited manpower, he couldn't do anything big. Uehara Shiraha didn't expect to conquer Hueco Mundo with this base. After a few days, the 46th room really rejected Uehara Shiraha's proposal and commented that it was fantastic. However, after this incident, they were not in a hurry to withdraw the manpower and materials from the Hueco Mundo base. Uehara Shiraha didn't take it to heart. His desired goal had been achieved. Anyway, with the old man Shan and Kayaraku Shunsui on his side, Uehara Shiraha could do whatever he wanted. Moreover, with this base, it is convenient for Uehara Shiraha to observe the situation of Hueco Mundo and understand the progress of Aizen Arankar's experiment. A waning moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the unesthetic and even shabby Hueco Mundo palace. At this time, Baragan, the king of Hueco Mundo, who was wearing a black robe and a golden crown and looked like the king of the undead, tilted his head and looked at a group of Ajuchas, wondering, where did Valdez go? Why didn't he come to see me? A subordinate, Minos Grande, immediately replied respectfully. Lord Valdez went to eliminate the noisy Shinigami according to your majesty's orders and has not returned yet. Waste. Berrigan wondered whether to continue to strengthen these subordinates. This group of waste is getting more and more incompetent, which makes him very disappointed. It seems that not enough people died. It's a pity that Harabel didn't know how to show respect. Otherwise, his subordinates wouldn't be all waste. At this moment, 3 ordinary humans appeared in the Palace of Night and stood in front of Berrigan. All 3 of them were wearing death suits. Facing a group of Minos Grande and Berrigan, they looked calm and relaxed. The Ajuchas in the palace were stunned. How did these 3 guys appear? The leading humanoid Ajuchas reacted and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Palace of Night?" One of the men dressed as a blind man swung a sharp blade and killed the Ajuchas who spoke. For a moment, all the Minos Grande were shocked and subconsciously took a step back. In the Palace of Night, a black man with sunglasses, dreadlocks, and dark skin stunned all the Minos Grande with one move. The elegant man with glasses next to him was calm. The silver-haired boy at the end also squinted his eyes and smiled. For a moment, the whole audience was silent. But things like hollows are brainless. After a moment of silence, the Japanese group of Minos Grande, with their faces full of evil, surrounded the 3 people. At this time, Berrigan, the king of Hueco Mundo, said coldly, "You retreat first. I'm a little bored, so I'll kill time with them." Then, Berrigan looked at the 3 people with disdain. "Judging from your attire, you should be Shinigami. The fact that you can come here means that Valdez has failed. You're all trash. So what is your purpose?" Having lived for countless years, he did not take the 3 ants in front of him seriously. Berrigan was just a little curious. The 3 Shinigami had no killing intentions, so what was their purpose in coming here? The bespectacled man in the lead was gentle and patient. "Introduce myself. Oizen Shuke. I wonder if you, the king of Hueco Mundo, are satisfied with the current situation. With his strength, he could have taken action against Hueco Mundo long ago. But even if he is 99% sure, Aizen will still act cautiously and will never underestimate the enemy. The Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force had been very successful not long ago, and Aizen had collected enough intelligence. That's why he brought Ikamaru Jin and Tosen Kaname to Kaika Palace. After saying that, Aizen raised the Zampiket in his hand, pointed the tip of the knife at the ground, and whispered, "Break it, Kaika Sujetsu." In an instant, invisible ripples vibrated, like the surface of the water breaking. The Minos Grande were confused and didn't realize what was happening. "What do you mean?" Berrigan didn't even think of stopping the other party. From beginning to end, he treated these 3 Shinigami as Oda. Facing Berrigan's disdainful face, Aizen still said indifferently, "Your ability and strength are enough to become part of my plan. If you agree, I will give you the power to evolve to a higher level. You and Hueco Mundo will usher in a brand new world." "How ridiculous! I'm tired of you stupid Shinigami." Berrigan directly picked up the huge double-edged axe next to him, turned around and came to the 3 people and shouted, "I am the king of Hueco Mundo. I have the final say on whether Hueco Mundo will change or not. The only one who can change the world is me, the king of Hueco Mundo, Berrigan." As soon as the voice fell, he chopped up all 3 Shinigami in front of him with one axe. But the killing Mad Berrigan would never have thought that this would be the last highlight of his life. And it was a false highlight. At this time, Berrigan looked at the 3 Shinigami who were so vulnerable and said disdainfully, "What do you mean by letting me evolve and see a whole new world? You are so arrogant, but in the end you only have this little ability. How boring." Really, with a familiar gentle voice, Aizen, Ikamaru Jin, and Tosen Kaname, who had just been separated, reappeared in front of Berrigan. And the 3 of them were unharmed, looking at Berrigan as if he was looking at a clown. Impossible, it just clearly. Berrigan was a little exasperated. Looking at Berrigan, who was obviously a bit disappointed, Aizen waved his Kaika Sujetsu. "This is the world you live in." As Aizen finished speaking, the scene in front of Berrigan changed. The Kaya Palace was full of broken fingers and debris. All the subordinates who were just flattering him died tragically. What appeared before his eyes was a hell scene like a sea of blood and corpses. "How dare you tease me, old Sai?" Seeing the Shura hell-like Kaya Palace in front of him, Berrigan was shocked at first, and then furious. In front of the bone throne, Bayu's body was surging with terrifying Ryatsu and disturbing momentum. He waved his bone hand, and a black breath enveloped Aizen. Where the ominous black breath passed, everything was annihilated, and the rocks and wind and sand were all turned into dust and disappeared. The Minos on the ground, when Grande's body touched the black aura, it quickly turned into white bones, and then weathered and dissipated. It seemed that there was an invisible big hand that wiped out everything that the black aura touched. As expected of the king of Hueco Mundo, Ikamaru Jin opened his eyes a little, his expression a little solemn. Tosin Kiname stood in front of Aizen with a dark face and said nothing. Aizen looked calm. The power of aging? Interesting, but it's a pity. After saying that, he gently waved Kaika Sujetsu, and the scenery in front of him changed again. Those black auras also fell into the air, and a smooth pit appeared on the ground in an instant. Seeing the scene, Berrigan's pupils, the eye sockets without eyeballs, shook slightly. The scene that was so real just now turned out to be all fake. What is real and what is fake? I can't tell. I really can't tell. In desperation, Berrigan could only use the power of aging again to force the hateful Shinigami out. Stop. It's too ugly. Facing the power of aging that decays everything, Aizen burst out Ryatsu. A golden beam of light shot up into the sky. The terrifying Ryatsu shocked the entire Soul King Palace, causing the spirit particles in the atmosphere and the surrounding buildings to slightly distort and deform. The black breath of aging everything and decaying everything, once it touched Aizen's unimaginable Ryatsu, could not advance an inch and gradually dissipated. This Berrigan's white bone jaw almost fell to the ground in shock. The only way to crack the power of aging is to defend with a stronger Ryatsu. But this is impossible, absolutely impossible. He is Berrigan Rubanson, the king of Hueco Mundo, an ugly man who has existed for countless years. How could anyone surpass him in Ryatsu? However, the scene in front of him hit his soul directly. Just as Berrigan was shocked, Ikamaru Jin and Tosin Kaname used a Shuinpa to block Berrigan's vital points with Zampicut on the left and right. At this time, Berrigan finally realized his failure. He was helpless and lowered his proud head, and his heart as a king was broken. Since Hueco Mundo has become ours, let's move forward steadily according to the plan and transform it from time to time. While speaking, Aizen glanced at the dilapidated Kainyaku Palace in front of him with disdain. The king of Hueco Mundo ridiculous. While Aizen was developing Hueco Mundo and conducting Arrancar experiments, Uehara Shiraha was also ready to get a share. Some of Hueco Mundo's ores and specialties are still valuable. Among them, Minos Grande is one of the specialties. Of course, Hueco Mundo's Arrancar and even Espada will also be included in the Hueco Mundo Expedition Headquarters luxury package in the future. For Uehara Shiraha, who has mastered the Hueco Mundo Gate, this is a monopoly business. Half a month later, not far from the inner circle of Hueco Mundo, a one-sided battle is coming to an end. Hueco Mundo can be roughly divided into the inner circle, the outer circle, and the underground Minos Grande Forest. The inner circle is the area where the Kion Palace is located. The closer to here, the stronger the Void 0.1 is, and the more Minos Grande there are. The Hueco Mundo base, controlled by Uehara Shiraha, is located outside Hueco Mundo, which is an area that Kion Palace doesn't care about. However, occasionally, Uehara Shiraha will come to the edge of the inner circle like this to hunt secretly. At this time, looking at the group of Minos Grande in front of him, he waved Splitting Void again. Several Ajuchas were directly frozen into huge ice blocks by the terrifying cold current and could not move. Of course, in fact, he activated the power of the stand-in White Album, and Splitting Void was just a cover. The power of extreme cold surged out, freezing Minos Grande and affecting Kuratsuchi Mayuri, who was wearing a black and white mask. Faced with the sudden cold, Nijali was not panicked at all and snorted coldly. Then, nameless flames immediately ignited around his body, resisting the incoming ultra-low temperature cold. Wrapped in the flames, Uehara Shiraha looked at Yudoyu with his cold golden pupils. The temperature around him dropped a few degrees again. Uehara Shiraha took back the splitting void and said to himself, "Captain Kuratsuchi Mayuri, the research materials you want are all here. Our deal has been reached, and it's your turn to fulfill your promise." Uehara Shiraha wanted to completely control the Hueco Mundo base and the gate, and Nijali's help was indispensable. He knew that this Frankenstein had a lot of good things in his hands. Moreover, this Kuratsuchi Mayuri was not the kind of person who followed the rules and could cooperate in transactions. Therefore, Uehara Shiraha got in touch with the other party. "Did you just include me in the attack range?" Kuratsuchi Mayuri's eyes were colder, with curiosity and excitement. If he hadn't taken some countermeasures in advance, he would be frozen like those hollows. "But why can't I collect any Ryatsu samples and can't be sealed by the barrier? Moreover, the medicine seems to be ineffective against this guy. This guy and his Zampicate are really excellent experimental materials." Chapter 52. Super Strong Panel. Hope of destroying the holy body. Uehara Shiraha raised his eyebrows. "Didn't the drug you just used to trap Minos Grande also target me?" He knew that if he was not strong enough or had no countermeasures, cooperating with a madman like Neri would be like courting disaster. So, Uehara Shiraha had been on guard against this guy from the beginning. The various drugs developed by Kuratsuchi Mayuri are unsolvable and highly targeted, but they're just younger brothers in front of the horse charm. A third seat dares to disrespect the captain. Kuratsuchi Mayuri's expression was a little gloomy. With his temperament, even if Uehara Shiraha was not completely turned into experimental material, he would put him on the operating table for research. However, he didn't expect the other party to ignore the drug he had carefully studied. "This is simply a shame." Uehara Shiraha looked calm. "I don't mind learning the skills of the captain of the 12th Division. Oh, by the way, the acting captain. The first appearance of Shinigami Zampicate Bankai in the plot was opened by Kuratsuchi Mayuri in front of him. Then he was beaten to pieces by Ishida Yuryu, who just came out of the novice village. With this level, what is there to be afraid of? I will meet your request." Kuratsuchi Mayuri snorted coldly and began to slowly deal with the frozen Minos Grande in front of him. He did things for money and never cheated anyone. In this regard, Kuratsuchi Mayuri still has a strong professional ethics. In addition, he was reluctant to part with Uehara Shiraha. Who would have thought that the seemingly barren and looked down upon by those big men, Hollow and Hueco Mundo, actually have so many rare resources? Uehara Shiraha shrugged and said nothing more. With the support of Nigali and the Technology Development Bureau, Siriidi's side of the World Gate is stable. As for Hueco Mundo, Aizen will never be able to take action on this base until he gets the information of Wang Jian and Jiaku. So now is the best time for development. Uehara Shiraha is ready to continue to farm quietly and develop in a low-key manner. However, in order to prevent those disgusting nobles from making trouble, Uehara Shiraha decided to use a vest to take the initiative. Night fell. The main house of the Tsuneshiro family, Tsuneshiro Shikawa, who was full of nobility and majesty, suddenly raised his head and said coldly, "How did you get through the murderous stone barrier?" The murderous stone is not only hard in texture, but the invisible waves it releases can also form a circular barrier that blocks the spiritual power of the spirit. The soul-blocking membrane surrounding the Siriidii is based on this principle. As the head of the 5 nobles, their Tsuneshiro family certainly also mastered this technology. 29, and now, this masked man appeared in front of him in such a grand manner. Behind him, the elite guards of the Tsuneshiro family fell to the ground in a mess. At this time, Uehara Shiraha, who was wearing a tiger skin Madara pattern Obito mask, said calmly, "Master of the Tsuneshiro family, don't worry, I am not here to assassinate you. I'm only here as an envoy to negotiate peace. Tsuneyashiro Tokuwa reacted quickly and suddenly remembered the clan member who died strangely not long ago. Are you from the Shihoin family? You are very brave. You killed our clan members and dared to appear in front of me. Our Tsuneyashiro family is the leader of the 5 great nobles and represents the history of Soul Society. You think so? Uehara Shiraha didn't take the 5 great nobles and the Tsuneyashiro family to heart at all, and said slowly, "However, if you 2 ancient nobles continue to fight like this, it will only make others laugh. Why don't you 2 cooperate and get rid of those small and medium-sized families together, and then seize their seats in the 46 chambers? The seat will belong to whoever contributes more." In Uehara Shiraha's opinion, there are too many nobles in Siriidi. All these corrupt nobles will be finished. In the entire Soul Society, there's only one person who enjoys himself without working. Tsuneyashiro Tokikawa's eyes flashed with a gleam, and he said disdainfully, "The 46th room is just a tool for managing Godai 13. What's the point of this seat? Whether it's Shinigami or those small and medium nobles, their Tsuneyashiro family doesn't care." "Really?" Uehara Shiraha laughed. "If you really don't care, why let the family members join Godai 13 and absorb female Shinigami from Rukongai? The original Godai 13 did not have members of the Tsuneyashiro family. But Godai 13 has become more and more powerful in recent years, and it is impossible for the Tsuneyashiro family to have no ideas. Otherwise, they who claim to be of noble blood would not allow Tsuneyashiro Tokunada to join the Spiritual Arts Academy and let the other party cooperate in the experiment of combining nobles and Rukongai commoners. Because of this experiment, Uehara, a Rukongai commoner, married Tsuneyashiro Tokunada, and then the 2 went crazy. One is Tsuneyashiro Tokunada, who killed his wife. The other is Tosin Kaname, who lost his best friend. Tsuneyashiro Tokikawa, who was hit by the other party's words, took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. As the head of the 5 noble families, he did not allow himself to lose his composure in front of ants. At this time, Uehara Shiraha changed the subject. Now the Hell family guards the Hell, the Shiba family exiles themselves, and the Kachiki family guards the 6th division. And the Shihoin family has no intention of power struggle and is willing to support you to make a difference. Such a good opportunity. If you can't grasp it as the head of the Tsuneyashiro family, it would be too useless. You know, it was your ancestors who sneaked down the Spirit King and created the current world. Tsuneyashiro Tokikawa, don't lose face for your ancestors. The Tsuneyashiro family is full of ambitious people who will do anything to achieve their ambitions. Now, Uehara Shiraha has given them a chance to release their ambitions, and these wishing for chaos in the world, ambitious people will definitely be able to grasp it. As for the life and death of these nobles, Uehara Shiraha didn't care at all. He just wanted to see the blood flow like a river. After some thought, Tsuneyashiro Tokikawa agreed to Uehara Shiraha's proposal. However, he only agreed on the surface, and he had other ideas in his heart. Uehara Shiraha knew this very well, but he didn't take it to heart at all. Once the train started, it would not be so easy to stop, and it could only move along the laid track. After dealing with Tsuneyashiro Tokikawa, Uehara Shiraha went to meet Shihoin Yuruchi as agreed. After a hair wash, Shihoin Yuruchi was fooled. With the token provided by Shihoin Yuruchi, Uehara Shiraha found Shihoin Yashiro, who was weak and easy to deceive. This time was even simpler. Yashiro now had no awareness and confidence to become the head of the family. Uehara Shiraha only encouraged him a little and gained Yashiro's trust. After a busy time, Injo was set. Late at night, at the secret base under Skyaka Hill, Uehara Shiraha was enjoying a hot spring bath. Behind him, Shihoin Yuruchi, wearing cat earrings, was rubbing Uehara Shiraha's back. Looking at Uehara Shiraha, who was enjoying himself, Shihoin Yuruchi was furious and said viciously, "Now you can tell me why you want to support the Kaneyashiro family to seize the seat of the 46th chamber, right?" Before, this BD had a long speech, and she was confused and believed his words and handed over the token. Thinking about it now, Shihoin Yuruchi really wanted to beat the naive self to death. Why did you believe this guy's evil? He said that by giving up the benefits, he could divert the attention of the Tsuneshiro family and save the family in Yashiro. But the problem is that once the Tsuneshiro family becomes powerful, the situation of the Shihoin family will only become more unfavorable. The service attitude needs to be improved. Uehara Shiraha first raised some opinions and then said bluntly, "So you don't have a big picture view. In the current situation, it is inevitable that the Tsuneshiro family will dominate. It makes no difference whether they have 15 seats or 30 seats in the 46th chamber. By joining forces with the Kachiki family, you can indeed restrict the Tsuneshiro family in the Kinshin Noble Council. But you can't stop them from making small moves in secret. In this case, you might as well give up some of your rights. Then sacrifice those hopeless middle and lower nobles and gather a group of useful people as your assistants. This is much better than your cowardly tactics. Understand applause. For Uehara Shiraha, it is really no pressure to control this pair of siblings. Really, Shihoin Yuruchi was a little skeptical. Will you be so kind to help us? Although this Tsutsuki Naruto spoke very well, she had long known that this guy was a BD who would not get up early without profit. Shihoin Yuruchi always felt that this guy wanted to cheat people. She just couldn't figure out where this pit was, how deep it was, and whether it would involve the Shihoin family. Uehara Shiraha also heard Shihoin Yuruchi's concerns and felt that this girl had really grown up and was not so easy to fool. He did not continue to be mysterious, but comforted the other party. You can rest assured that I will not cooperate with the Tsuneshiro family and Aizen. One of them is too bold and dares to stab the Spirit King in the back. The other is smart and not easy to deal with. At this point, the Shihoin family and Shihoin Yuruchi had already boarded his pirate ship, and even if they realized something was wrong, they couldn't get off the ship. Then I really thank you. Shihoin Yuruchi certainly heard that this guy meant that she was stupid, but at the moment, it seems that she can only go all the way. This guy's ability is too tricky, and in the eyes of others, the Shihoin family and this guy are already bound together. Sure enough, at the beginning, they shouldn't have traded with this guy, and now they are completely trapped. Is this also in his calculations? Ignoring the gradually Dihua, Miss Shin, Uehara Shiraha just concentrated on enjoying the other party's massage. Now the overall situation has been decided, and there is no need to worry about Shihoin Yuruchi and Uehara Kisuk doing anything weird. Next, he just needs to develop silently and take steady steps. Sure enough, everything is going according to Uehara as Shiraha expected. In the internal struggle of the nobles, the Tsuneshiro family gradually began to take the initiative and prepared to eliminate dissidents and compete for the seat of the 46 chambers. Facing the Shihoin family, which was in a bad state, the Kachiki family could not support itself and could only let the Tsuneshiro family grow and develop. The Tsuneshiro family became more and more crazy, even slaughtering the Foolbringers in the world to obtain the Soul King fragments, and put the blame on the innocent Shinigami agent Jinjo Kugo. At the same time, the Tsuneshiro Tokunada, who was under house arrest, also made small moves and took the opportunity to gather a group of people. During this period, Uehara Shiraha borrowed two identities, got along well with both sides, and ate up the upper and lower families, and obtained the greatest benefits openly and secretly. Just when Aizen controlled the inner circle of Hueco Mundo, that is, the area of Kyuya Palace, Uehara Shiraha also created a court army outside Hueco Mundo. He also officially became the first commander-in-chief of this semi-independent armed force. With the help of Kairaku, with Shuinsue's connections and the captain's support, Uehara Shiraha firmly controlled the Hueco Mundo base and the Imperial Army. Of course, these were just his casual actions in order to better enjoy life and grow stronger. After all, in the Shinigami world, power and fame are nothing but clouds. Only strength is the most real reliance. Moreover, Uehara Shiraha did not forget that Aizen's Espada troops in Hueco Mundo had already taken shape. The monks in the sky were secretly making plans, and the army of the Invisible Empire in the shadows had already assembled. So while enjoying life and growing up, he was also actively completing tasks and quietly becoming stronger. Unknowingly, 5 years had passed. At this time, in the luxurious private room of the Imperial Army commander, with a system prompt, Uehara Shiraha looked over with surprise. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the special mission 12, Zampakit's real name Awakening, developing the second stage Bankai, and rewarding the Mind Gem, SR level item. Mind Gem, level, SR level type, Infinity Stone ability, read, dominate, invade, modify, create all mental consciousness, and enhance one's own mental power. Introduction. 1. One of the 6 oldest and most powerful Infinity Stones in the Marvel main universe. One of the 117 points of cosmic singularity. Collecting 6 Infinity Stones can make any wish come true too. Obtained after the host completes Special Mission 12 Zampakit True Name Awakening. Developing second stage Bankai. 3. Please do not use it on Heart of Steel. Seeing this reward, Uehara Shiraha was very surprised and finally became happy. Although it is not an SR level ability reward, it is at least his first SR level reward. Without hesitation, he activated Universal Barrier to cover his whole body to ensure that no one can see the situation here. Then, Uehara Shiraha turned his right hand, and there was an oval yellow gem in his hand. The pigeon egg-sized mind gem released a faint yellow light. Just looking at the appearance, it is really hard to imagine that it is a single universe-level treasure. Uehara Shiraha carefully sent the Mind Stone into the splitting void space and opened the character panel again to check. Name, Uehara Shiraha. Position, 3rd seat of the 1st Division. Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Army Ryatsu. 2nd class Spiritual Power Zampakit. Splitting Void, Bankai, Zampakit. Advanced Captain level White Hits. Advanced Captain level Kid. 1000-year Captain level Shuinpa. 1000-year Captain level abilities. 1. Shadow Clone Technique, B-level ability, Perfect. 2. Stand White Album, level 5 ability, Perfect. 3. Breathing Method Sun Breathing, B-level ability, Perfect. 4. Angel Power Universal Barrier, S-level ability, Perfect. 5. Magic Move 7 Flashes, A-level ability, Perfect. Props. 1. Disguise Glasses, B-level props, Kryptonian Creation. 2. Death Gloves, A-level props, Extraordinary Creation. 3. Horse Charm, A-level props, Magic Creation. 4. Three-dimensional Maneuvering Device, D-level props, Science and Technology Creation. 5. Black Ball Combat Suit, B-level props, Technological Creation. 6. Mind Gem, SR level, Unlimited Gem. Looking at the panel, Uehara Shiraha's mouth curled up. This is called Invincible. This panel is very comfortable. With his current panel, plus a bunch of powerful full-level abilities, he can easily compete with Aizen. Next, he could do whatever he wants. It's worth it that he has been working hard to complete tasks in addition to eating, drinking, and having fun for the past 50 years. In the Shinigami world, the strength of the strong can be divided into Captain level, Senior Captain level, Millennium Captain level, Transcendent level, Pseudo-Spirit King level, and Spirit King level. Miguru Makensei, who doesn't like to waste other people's time, is a standard captain level goalkeeper. Senior captains are generally captains who have been in office for hundreds of years and have reached the limit in all aspects, but lack talent or accumulation and cannot go further. Sure, Sasakaibe and Byakuya Kuchiki, who evolved from the Soul King Palace, are at the senior captain level. The limit of the Shinigami race is the Millennium Captain. Generally, even if the talent is sufficient, it takes 1,000 years of accumulation to have the opportunity to be promoted to this level. With the perfect proficiency of White Album, Uehara Shiraha is now a senior captain level. Chapter 53. The much-anticipated captain assessment. How strong is the strongest genius? As for the unexpected surprise of the SR level Soul Gem, it immediately raised Uehara Shiraha's potential to another level. This level of props, as long as it is slightly developed, is the level of the Transcendent. The Zero Squad, the complete Holy Bodyguard, and the Blood Blue are all at the Transcendent level. As for the Soul King Ha and the Double Sword Bankai Ichigo, they are Pseudo-Soul King level. Uehara Shiraha's hard power is still a long way from the pseudo-Soul King level. But now it is more than 30 years before the Thousand-Year Blood War. During this period, daily tasks can increase a lot of attribute points. And when the plot begins, he can also brush a lot of special tasks. So, it is not a dream to blow up the Holy Bodyguard, and it can even be said to be easy. Now I feel at ease and relieved. Thinking of this, Uehara Shiraha happily glanced at the task log panel. First is the daily task summary. A total of 25,263 daily tasks have been completed, and a total of 50,526 random attribute points have been rewarded. Then there is the special task summary. 1. Complete Special Mission 1, visit Rukongai, and get Shadow Clone B-level ability. As reward, 10. Complete Special Mission 10, become the General of the Imperial Army, and get 3-dimensional mobile device, D-level item, 7 sets. 11. Complete Special Mission 11, accept Hinamori Momo and Rukia as apprentices, and get Black Ball Combat Suit, B-level item, 10 sets. 12. Complete Special Mission 12, Zampakit True Name Awakening, develop second stage Bankai, and get Mind Gem, SR level item. In the past 50 years, Uehara Shiraha has only received 3 special missions, and the reward for the first 2 special missions are very poor. The Black Ball Combat Suit is at least somewhat useful, and Shihoin Yoruchi and Matsumoto Ranjika look great when wearing it. Moreover, unless you're a top captain, you will never be able to break this defense with one strike, so it can be regarded as a one-time absolute defense. I have to say that the multifaceted star has something, and he understands men very well. The beauties are doubly seductive when they wear this black bodysuit. The bulges are especially bulging, and the curves are especially curvy, showing the S-shaped body curves. Even a serious person like Uehara Shiraha can't help himself. But the problem is that they understand men too well. Shihoin Yoruchi and Matsumoto Ranjiku, the 2 old drivers, are okay. Occasionally, when they are having fun, they can also wear this black bodysuit and play role-playing games with Uehara Shiraha to test the elasticity and toughness of this bodysuit. Ayase Nanao, Hinamori Momo, and Rukia, the 3 female apprentices, all blushed and refused, saying it was too embarrassing. However, God really doesn't need this thing. After all, it is normal to look down on this one-time defense when Aizen and 6 captains besiege the strongest shield that has not been broken. As for the 3-dimensional mobile device that was rewarded when he became the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Army, Uehara Shiraha really didn't know what it was for. He couldn't let his Imperial Army go and chop Jillian's neck, right? Eren Yeager in Attack on Titan was very free, but this broken device was not free at all. Not as good as a Shumpa hair. Complete garbage. Uehara Shiraha threw it directly into the splitting void space and was too lazy to take it out. But fortunately, these 2 garbage rewards were padding. Even if the previous rewards were a little garbage and the special tasks triggered were a little less, but once the Mind Gem came out, it would all be earned back. Looking at the Mind Gem that was constantly releasing power in the splitting void space, Uehara Shiraha thought beautifully. In the remaining 50 years, try to brush up 100,000 attribute points, and then do a few more special tasks, so that you can lie down and survive the 1,000-year bloody war. In the office of the Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Army, Yuan felt a familiar spiritual pressure approaching the room. Then a pretty young female subordinate came in, bowed her head, and said respectfully, "General, the captain of the 8th Division, Kairaka Shunsui, is here to visit." Got it. Uehara Shiraha nodded. Then, Kairaku Shunsui, wearing a bamboo hat and a pink haori, walked in and said in amazement, "Every time I come here, I feel it's exaggerated." At the beginning, no one was optimistic about the Hueco Mundo base and the so-called Imperial Army. Even Kairaka Shunsui was the same. However, Kairaka Shunsui still fully supported Uehara Shiraha. At least he could save some money for his little brother. Who would have thought that Uehara Shiraha would really create a highly authorized army out of nothing? I really don't know how this little brother did it. It's just a small fight, it's nothing. Uehara Shiraha really didn't take his current status seriously and changed the subject. "It's not even night yet, brother. You are here now because the old man has given you an order, right? The status of the third seat of the first squadron and the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Army is higher than that of ordinary captains, and ordinary people can't control him. Hee, this time's a good thing. Kairako Shinsue's face was full of an expression of waiting for a good show. Let's go. Don't make those people wait anxiously. It was to better observe the changes in Uehara Shiraha's expression that he came to deliver the message in person. Uehara Shiraha didn't even need to look at Kairako Shinsue's face. Just by listening to his tone of voice, he knew that something was wrong. But it was probably not a big deal. At most, it was a little troublesome. Uehara Shiraha didn't take it to heart. After all, he had gained a lot today and was in a good mood, so it was okay if it was a little troublesome. Uehara Shiraha, wearing a moon-white haori and a black Shinigami costume, walked out of the room calmly. The Shinigami costume is a symbol of Shinigami, and the moon-white haori is the exclusive uniform of the chief commander of the Imperial Army. Ordinary Imperial Army soldiers have moon-white emblems on their Shinigami costumes. The surrounding Imperial Army Shinigami looked at the young chief commander with admiration, their eyes full of little stars. Uehara Shiraha has long been accustomed to this. Along the way, Uehara Shiraha and Kairako Shunsui talked and laughed, discussing what new tea was on the market in the latest flower street. As old tea art masters, the two have studied deeply in this area and have a lot in common. Because of this, Ieyasu Nanao, the deputy commander of the Imperial Army, always complained that Kairaka Shunsui had led their commander astray. Every time, Kairaka Shunsui felt very wronged. As for Uehara Shiraha's tricks, it's not certain who led whom astray. However, now Ieyasu Nanao is basically the deputy captain of the 8th Division, and the focus of work is all on Uehara Shiraha. People also tend to Uehara Shiraha. Therefore, Kairaka Shunsui can only suffer this loss in silence. Shunpa kept on walking, and the two soon arrived at the captain's office. As soon as he arrived at the spacious and transparent office hall, Masahara Shiraha received the attention of the captains on both sides. While walking to the front, Uehara Shiraha glanced around and saw that they were all familiar faces. The old man at the front of the hall was still the same, with his eyes closed, looking like he was dozing off, his body motionless and extremely calm. Captain of the 2nd Division, Enhanced Rong Mama Suifeng. Captain of the 4th Division, respecting the elderly and loving the young, 1st Generation Kenpachi Uno Hanaretsu. Captain of the 5th Division, Lazy Spiritual Corps Gentleman Sword, Aizen Suk. Captain of the 7th Division, Furry Warmth Kamamura Sajin. Captain of the 9th Division, Kwazani version of Blind Monk Tosin Kaname. Captain of the 10th Division, Future 3-Child Dad Shiba Ishin. Captain of the 11th Division, Berserker version of Zoro Zaraki Kenpachi. Captain of the 12th Division, Fatherly Love Like a Mountaineer. Then, without any surprise, Captain of the 13th Division, Shur Yukitake, was with them in spirit again. In addition, Uehara Shiraha also saw the cold and expressionless Byakuya Kachiki and the squinty-eyed Ikamara Jin. Uehara Shiraha immediately understood that today's main course was these two. In this timeline, Shuhei, who failed the exam twice, has joined the 9th Division and met his second life mentor, Tosin Kaname. A few years ago, Aizen recruited Kira, Izuru, Abarai, and Hinamori Momo to the 5th Division. After the PUA of the 1st Division, he found that Abarai Renji was wild and unruly, so he threw this red-haired man to the 11th Division. After several years of preparation, Aizen felt that Kira, Izuru, and Hinamori Momo could be used and the time was ripe, so he recommended Ikamara Jin as the captain of the 3rd Division. Today should be the day to test Ikamara Jin. Uehara Shiraha also guessed Yamamoto, Jin Ryusai, Shigekuni's plan. It's still the same old trick, roasting him on the fire, trying to make him come up with a plan. However, Uehara Shiraha was not panicked at all, because real gold is not afraid of fire. Seeing Uehara Shiraha, who is calm, young, and handsome, the other captains are a little upset. Although they are captains, Uehara Shiraha is only a 3rd seat. But they know that Uehara Shiraha is definitely not weak, and may even be stronger than ordinary captains. Moreover, he is the commander-in-chief of the court army, and his rank can even be said to be the same as the captain-in-chief. In terms of power, the captains present may not care much. However, this degree of freedom is very enviable. These captains work diligently and tirelessly every day, but are subject to various restrictions. Uehara Shiraha, the commander-in-chief of the court army, eats and drinks every day, but can freely enter and exit the confidential areas of Siriidi, and can even go to Hueco Mundo for a stroll. No need to go to work, and the salary is enough. This is the life that Kairaku Shunsui dreams of. So far, most captains can't understand why those nobles who are too arrogant would let Uehara Shiraha go. Only Kuratsuchi Mayuri, Kairaku Shunsui, and Aizen saw some clues. Yamamoto Jinryu Sai Shigekuni also had doubts about this, but he didn't take it to heart. When people get older, they don't want to use their brains anymore. At this time, Yamamoto Jinryu Sai Shigekuni slightly opened his eyes, glanced at Uehara Shiraha, and said in a deep voice, "General Uehara, I called you here today because Ikamaru Jin took over as the captain of the 3rd Division. I think it is fairest for you to be the examiner. I don't know if you agree. No objection. Just treat it as a reminisce with old classmates." What else can Masahara Shiraha say after saying this? At this moment, Byakuya Kachiki stepped out and asked with a cold face, "Captain General Uehara, I have just taken over as the captain of the 6th Division, and I also hope to participate in the assessment to prove myself." Originally, as the head of the Kachiki family, it was natural for him to inherit the position of captain of the 6th Division. But Byakuya Kachiki still wanted to prove himself, and also wanted to challenge Uehara Shiraha, the strongest genius of Siriidi. Zaraki Kinpachi's murderous aura was almost hard to conceal. He stared at Uehara Shiraha with his blood-red left eye and shouted, "I doubt Uehara Shiraha's ability. I want to challenge him. Only if you beat me will I recognize his qualification as an examiner." The scene was very chaotic for a while. Facing the somewhat out-of-control scene, Kairaku Shunsui laughed secretly. "BD, it's not an assessment for you. Why are you in a hurry?" Nei said disdainfully. "2, War Man," Aizen also persuaded. "Captain Zaraki, we all recognize your strength, but the strength of General Uehara is also trustworthy." Suifeng's face turned colder and shouted, "Captain Zaraki, please watch your words. Are you going to question the order of the captain?" In fact, she was also a little curious about who would win in the battle between these two people. Zaraki Kinpachi was in a state of madness. "I just want to kill Uehara Shiraha, or be killed by him." Yamamoto Jinryu Sai Shigekuni closed his eyes again, not taking this far seriously at all, but asked Uehara Shiraha, "General Uehara, what do you say?" "I don't care, anyway. I can drive a duck or a group of ducks." Uehara Shiraha shrugged and said casually. Looking at Uehara Shiraha, who looked indifferent, the captains had different expressions. Zaraki Kinpachi was full of excitement, and the Ryatsu and murderous intent around him were almost uncontrollable. Kuratsuchi Mayuri looked indifferent, and her golden pupils were very calm. The other captains were a little curious and expectant. In the Battle of Hueco Mundo, Uehara Shiraha's name as a genius was well known in the Soul Society. He himself became the strongest genius in the history of Soul Society. Even the past few decades, Uehara Shiraha has always been low-key and has never really shown his strength. But his reputation as a genius is still much more famous than Hitsugaya Chur, the prodigy of the 10th Division. Some captains are sometimes curious whether Uehara Shiraha is as powerful as the legend says. After all, no one has ever seen Uehara Shiraha take action. He is so young, and he did not show any extraordinary talent when he was at the Shin Academy of Spiritual Arts. In addition, Uehara Shiraha has perfectly demonstrated what it means to pass through a forest of flowers without getting a single leaf on you. He is a love emperor and a power playboy, which makes countless male Shinigami envious. In addition to training and practicing, Uehara Shiraha does everything: fishing, painting, calligraphy, music, carving, even if he was very strong before. How much fighting spirit and strength can he retain if he is so unrestrained and wastes his talent? How can one keep up with the pace of their captains becoming stronger? Suifeng agrees with this. In the Battle of Hueco Mundo several decades ago, Uehara Shiraha's performance, Lin Nua's, was so amazing that she once felt a little desperate, thinking that she would never be able to surpass him in her lifetime. However, over the years, she has been practicing hard and always fighting on the front line. And Uehara Shiraha eats, drinks, and has fun every day and does not do his job at all. So, she thinks that she has surpassed this guy now. At the Mount Number 1 martial arts arena, a group of captains with different thoughts gathered. Except for the captains of each team, there were no other witnesses at the scene. Because when a captain fights with all his strength and opens Bankai, his powerful Ryatsu cannot be withstood even by the vice captain. Therefore, Shinigami below the captain are not suitable to watch this assessment up close. And this also ensures that the captain's Bankai information will not be leaked. Kairaka Shunsui first sensed the barrier around him and nodded. No problem. It's very strong, and Ryatsu won't leak out. Kuratsuchi Mayuri, who was arrogant, said confidently, "Of course, this is specially reinforced with my technology. Even if several captains attack together, it can't be broken." Really, Shiba was a little eager to try, but after thinking about it, he gave up the idea. In the center of the arena, covered by multiple layers of barriers, Uehara Shiraha and Ikimura Jin stood on both sides and confronted each other. "Jin, long time no see." Uehara Shiraha greeted him first. Looking at Uehara Shiraha with a relaxed face, Ikimura Jin squinted and sighed. "I didn't expect to fight with you in such a situation. I heard that by Yujun killed Waxu decades ago. This strength is really terrible. I am really ashamed of this so-called genius who graduated early." "Jin, you are too modest," Uehara Shiraha said seriously. "The fruits on the big trees will hang for a few more years than the seeds of weeds, but the former can grow into towering trees, while the latter—" At this point, he glanced at Ikimura Jin. It's always like this when classmates reminisce about the past. Highlighting an old friend hurts the heart. "Yes, sometimes I really envy you." Ikimura Jin's voice was inaudible, and his snake-like face became extremely cold. Chapter 54. Shirkai easily crushes Bankai. Uehara Shiraha's shocking strength. He exuded a dangerous aura. Holding the hilt with his right hand, shoot him shins. With a flash of silver light, the short dagger-like Zampicut in Ikimura Jin's hand stretched out like lightning and pierced out. It's really scary. It was just a little bit away from being pierced through the throat. Uehara Shiraha pressed a finger against the sharp tip of Shin's. In an instant, Ikimura Jin's Zampicut had crossed a long distance and pierced Uehara Shiraha's throat. At this time, some rock fragments slowly fell where Shin's passed. In one blow, the strong wind brought by Shin's blew away the surface of the stone of the arena. But because Shin's was too fast, it fell at this time. Seeing this scene, several captains nodded slightly, recognizing Ikimura Jin's strength. Shirkai Zampicut can have such impact and speed, which is also excellent. Not bad. Zaraki Kinpachi recognized Ikimura Jin's strength. The other captains were moved. Ikimura Jin's powerful attack was blocked by Uehara Shiraha with just one finger. At this time, all the captains realized that Uehara Shiraha's strength did not decline, but became more unfathomable. Is this a genius? Is this a monster? Vice Captain Ikimura's Shirkai is very good, and his impact and speed exceed the vice captain level. Shiba rubbed his chin and looked at Uehara Shiraha in amazement. But this Ryatsu and reaction of General Uehara are even more amazing. It is impossible to achieve this level without overwhelming Ryatsu. I thought it was a boring slashing by a reckless man, but I didn't expect it to be interesting. Kuratsuchi Mayuri snorted. He was not interested in a simple fight, but Uehara Shiraha and Ikimura Jin's methods were very impressive, which made him a little interested. After all, until now, Kuratsuchi Mayuri felt that Uehara Shiraha's Zampicut was very special. It's just that he has no clue, so he can only give up temporarily. Maybe this time he will have a chance to get a glimpse of it. Aizen said thoughtfully. General Uehara and Jin's Ryatsu have not leaked at all. Both of them are geniuses in hiding Ryatsu. As a master of hidden Ryatsu, he could see at a glance that during the fight between the two, Ryatsu hardly fluctuated. This ability of hidden Ryatsu is not something that ordinary Shinigami can have. In the martial arts arena, looking at Uehara Shiraha, who was calm and composed, Ikamaru Jin's expression was a little solemn. He never thought that he could defeat Uehara Shiraha by relying on Shirkai. But isn't it a bit too exaggerated to block Shirkai shins with just one finger? The acrobatics are good, but the power of 587 is a little lacking. Uehara Shiraha looked relaxed. Ikamaru Jin's snake-like face showed a somewhat cold smile. It seems so. It really doesn't work just relying on Shirkai. After saying that, he retracted shins, made a backward gesture, retracted his right hand, and shouted, Bankai Kamishini no Yari. The terrifying Ryatsu rolled towards the surrounding barriers, and the captains watching the battle like a wave. After feeling the powerful Ryatsu transmitted from Ikamaru Jin, several captains nodded and said, It is indeed a captain-level Ryatsu, and he has completed Bankai. At such a young age, he has the third-level spiritual power. He is indeed a genius. In this Bankai at this time, Ikamaru Jin waved the Kamishini no Yari in his hand with confidence. Instantly, the stone pillars on the edge of the platform were cut off and blasted apart. The cuts of the broken stone pillars were smooth and flat, and they were blasted back a long distance. Compared with Shirkai shins, the speed and power of Bankai Kamishini no Yari are dozens of times higher. Captain Kamamura, did you see it clearly? Suifeng's pupils shrank slightly and asked the big dog Kamamura Sajin next to him. If it was just a short distance extension and retraction, it would be understandable that Suifeng couldn't see it clearly. However, Ikamaru Jin's Zampiket just now shattered the stone pillars in the distance. It was incredible that she couldn't see the opponent's Zampiket's knife action clearly at such a long distance. Kamamura Sajin shook his head. I didn't see clearly. Vice Captain Ikamaru's Bankai is really fast. 100 Swords Ryu is really worthy of its reputation. When Ikamaru Jin's shins is in Shirkai, the attack range is 100 swords, so he was given the title of 100 Swords Ryu. But the captains present didn't take this title to heart before. It wasn't until Ikamaru Jin showed such a powerful Bankai that they remembered this title. In the stormy Ryatsu impact, Uehara Shiraha still looked calm. Seeing Uehara Shiraha's look, Ikamaru Jin kindly explained, when Shirkai, my shins extends the distance of 100 swords. After Bankai, the shins extends the range even further, a full 3 spirit miles. So, relying on speed will definitely not get rid of Kamishini no Yari's attack. Yeah, so amazing. Uehara Shiraha pretended to listen very carefully. In fact, he ignored Ikamaru Jin's explanation and didn't take it to heart at all. That's because Kyu Yuan Bai, Jack, you knew the real fear of shins. As the fastest sword, the most fearful thing about shins is not the impact force or extension range, but the speed. Shirkai shins already has lightning speed and extremely strong lethality. Bankai Kamishini no Yari is even more deadly, because at this time shins no longer needs to extend and retract to attack. Instead, it is similar to Matsumoto Ranjiku's Heiniko, where the blade first dissipates and permeates the entire space, and then condenses into a solid body to attack in an instant. Its speed is as fast as space teleportation, absolute Oldwood artifact. In the case of close-range sneak attacks, even the top captains may not be able to react. Even the big boss Aizen, who merged with Jayaku, was killed by this move. If it weren't for Jayaku to extend his life, there would be no protagonist Kurosaki Ichigo. To some extent, this thing is like the rule-based ability, and it is a first-sight kill. No step. After the explanation, Ikamaru Jin shrank back slightly, and the short sword-like Kamishini no Yari in his hand stretched out instantly. In just a moment, The sharp blade had already pierced Uehara Shiraha's head like lightning. But Uehara Shiraha was faster, and when Ikamaru Jin Ryatsu condensed, he had already left. After the attack, Ikamaru Jin did not stop and shouted, "No step continuous blade." No step is a unique move of Bankai Kamishini no Yari, relying on amazing speed to stretch the blade to pierce the enemy. No step continuous blade is to use no step repeatedly, because the speed of Kamishini no Yari's extension and contraction is too fast. In an instant, Uehara Shiraha in the distance has been covered by a sword light. Wherever the sword light reaches, whether it is a stone pillar or something else, it is instantly cut off and blasted away. The smoke and dust slowly fell, covering the battlefield. This is really amazing. Sui Feng was shocked. Facing such a large-scale, high-speed piercing, even she who specializes in Shuinpa could hardly avoid it. Sui Feng's first thought was to fight with Ikamaru Jin, and she must close the distance and not give the opponent a chance to exert force. The other captains also nodded slightly, recognizing Ikamaru Jin's strength even more. He completed Bankai at such a young age, and he is indeed qualified to be the captain of the third team. Jin, is it a bit too much? Aizen looked worried. Is Commander Uehara okay? Kayarako Shunsui looked like nothing happened. Captain Aizen, Brother Baiyu will definitely be fine. Shunpa is so strong. Tosin Kaname, who was wearing sunglasses and dreadlocks, frowned and looked a little serious. Several captains focused their attention and looked over. Only then did they realize that Uehara Shiraha had Shunpa escaped from Ikamaru Jin's attack range. At the same time, Ikamaru Jin's shins attacked again, but Uehara Shiraha easily dodged it again. And what was very strange was that Uehara Shiraha's movements did not seem fast, and several captains could see it clearly. Compared to Kamishini no Yari, whose attack movements were so fast that you couldn't see them, Uehara Shiraha's dodging movements seemed a bit slow. But even with such slow movements, he was able to dodge the sharp blades that whizzed in like cannonballs every time. At first glance, it seemed like Ikamaru Jin was cooperating with Uehara Shiraha to fake the game. This is really amazing. Several captains were shocked. The captains present all knew that only Shunpa, who had reached a very high level, could achieve the level of Uehara Shiraha's ease. Shunpa always dodges at the most critical moment, which not only requires extremely superb Shunpa skills, but also requires a big heart. Sui Feng gritted her teeth, and sure enough, Uehara Shiraha was still the same Uehara Shiraha. She felt inferior to such a powerful Shunpa. Kamamura Sajin also asked his friend Tosin Kaname, "Tosin, can you dodge such a Shunpa?" He knew that although his friend could not see, he had amazing spiritual perception and could dodge attacks that ordinary people could not dodge. Of course not, Tosin Kaname replied helplessly. My spiritual perception can only capture the trajectory, but I can't dodge it. The lightning-fast Kamishini no Yari is difficult to dodge, but the seemingly slow Shunpa like Uehara Shiraha is even more difficult to dodge. Because this kind of Shunpa, you can't dodge it even if you see it, it's so powerful. Kairaka Shunsui was also secretly shocked. I really don't know how many surprises you have hidden by you, brother. No one noticed that Aizen's eyes flashed with light in an instant. At the edge of the martial arts field, watching Uehara Shiraha swaying freely on the stage, Byakuya Kichiki and Zaraki Kenpachi all showed excitement and expectation. At this time, Uehara Shiraha didn't think too much. With the universal barrier as a guarantee, it doesn't matter even if he is hit by Kamishini no Yari once. Of course, he can't be hit by Kamishini no Yari. Even if Ikamaru Jin used the ultimate move comparable to the space system, it would be useless, because Splitting Void is a real space system. It can completely avoid the fatal blow without injury. Besides, after completing Bankai's training, his spatial perception ability has also risen. Not to mention a frontal attack. Even if it is a sneak attack from behind, Uehara Shiraha will not be hit. The next moment, Ikamaru Jin thrusted, and Kamishini no Yari suddenly flew out, smashing Uehara Shiraha's head. The moment he hit the target, Ikamaru Jin opened his eyes slightly, sighed, and said, "I was careless." Then, he raised his hands. "I give up. I'm sorry, Captain Aizen. I tried my best." Uehara Shiraha, who was pierced in the head, suddenly appeared behind Ikamaru Jin and retracted his fist with strong power. Passed. If Ikamaru Jin had reacted for a second, he would have hit this kid hard. At this time, the Uehara Shiraha, with a pierced head in the distance, fell to the ground and broke into pieces. At this time, the captains were surprised to find that it was actually a lifelike ice sculpture. Sway Phone was silent. Kuratsuchi Mayuri looked at Uehara Shiraha's Zampiket with a strange light. Byakuya Kachiki muttered to himself, "Is this the eternal Shirkai, Zampiket? I've always heard of it, but it's really amazing when I see it for the first time." Looking at the ice sculpture, Shiba was amazed. Kairaku Shinsue's eyesight was even better, and he said speechlessly, even had time to carve a dog head on the ice sculpture's clothes. "You are worthy of it, brother Baiyu." After hearing this, all the captains fell silent again. Ikamaru Jin is very strong, and he is definitely a captain-level player. The reason why Bankai couldn't beat Shirkai's Uehara Shiraha was because Uehara Shiraha was too strong. The strongest genius of Serie is indeed worthy of his reputation. At this time, the old man who had been pretending to sleep paused his cane and said, "Then according to the judgment of General Uehara, I will announce the assessment results as the captain of Godei 13. Ikamaru Jin, the vice captain of the 5th Division, is promoted to the captain of the 3rd Division." After hearing the order of the captain, all the captains woke up from their shock. "Congratulations, Jin. I knew you could do it." Aizen smiled with his assassin smile, and the whole person seemed to be bathed in the sun. Kamamura Sajin and Kairaku Shunsui nodded to Ikamaru Jin. The other captains all had a gloomy face and didn't express anything. Ikamaru Jin was not annoyed at all, and smiled and thanked Aizen, and thanked Uehara Shiraha. Uehara Shiraha also laughed and dealt with a few words. At the same time, several captains looked at Uehara Shiraha with complicated eyes. At a young age, he not only has a higher status than me, but also has stronger experience. Have you finished talking about the past? Can we start? At this time, Byakuya Kachiki, who was impatient, came to the center of the arena. Uehara Shiraha also came to the arena as a Shuinpa, and first glanced at Byakuya Kachiki. At this time, Byakuya Kachiki had a cold face, wearing a star-pulling clamp exclusive to the nobles, and a silver-white windflower gauze exclusive to dog owners around his neck. Then, Uehara Shiraha nodded to Byakuya Kachiki, indicating that it was time to start. "Scatter, Senbin Zakura." Byakuya Kachiki released Zampiket without any nonsense. A few sakura flowers fell. Byakuya Kachiki's Zampiket had turned into thousands of sharp red blades. Each blade was like a sakura flower petal, small and sharp. Looking at the beautiful death petals, Masahara Shiraha smiled and said, "What a beautiful shirkai. Kuchiki-san, the sakura flowers in my hometown are blooming." As soon as he finished speaking, the pink petals had already enveloped him. This time, Uehara Shiraha did not dodge, but just wave his hand gently. Boom! With a bang, relying only on the strength of his body, Uehara Shiraha dispersed the sharp blades flying from all directions. Byakuya Kuchiki reacted quickly and immediately used his best had 4 white thunder, a condensed white lightning shot towards Uehara Shiraha. After releasing Kid, Byakuya Kachiki also went towards Uehara Shiraha Shunpa. At the same time, he waved Senbin Zakura to continue attacking. Uehara Shiraha did not even look at it and said casually, "Inverted mountain crystal." An inverted triangle blue spirit barrier instantly enveloped Uehara Shiraha's body, like a huge conical protective shield. Whether it was the white thunder or the sharp blade of Senbin Zakura, they were all blocked outside. Looking at this barrier-like kid, the other captains were slightly surprised again. They thought they could also perform the 73rd Advanced Beikut without chanting. But they could never easily block all the attacks of Byakuya Kachiki like Uehara Shiraha. The captains looked at each other, and they saw shock and solemnity in each other's eyes. I didn't expect Uehara Shiraha to be so comprehensive at such a young age. Not only Shuinpa and white hits are strong, but even Kid is comparable to the elder Kid. As if thinking of something, Kayaraka Shunsui said leisurely, Brother Bayu is also a famous artist. He has a wide range of interests and has established skills in painting, music, sculpture, and other aspects. Because of this, Uehara Shiraha is so popular with girls and was even appointed as an honorary consultant by the Women's Shinigami Association. Chapter 55. The Almighty Byakuya, Kachiki, and the even more almighty Uehara Shiraha hearing this. All the captains were stunned. This might be the illegitimate son of the Spirit King. On the fighting stage, Byakuya Kachiki used all his means, using Kid, white hits, and slashing techniques to fight Uehara Shiraha, but to no avail. Uehara Shiraha reminded, You are immune to death, Bankai. Originally, Byakuya Kachiki was not going to use Bankai. After all, he was a proud man. The honor of the nobility and Shinigami did not allow him to use Bankai against Shurkai in a sparring battle. However, it turned out that if he did not use Bankai, let alone win, he could not even touch a piece of Kakuzu's clothes. Scatter, Senbenzakura, Kageyoshi. Byakuya Kachiki pointed the tip of the knife at the ground and let go. At the same time, ripples appeared on the ground. The entire Senbenzakura sank into the ripples and disappeared. In an instant, a powerful Ryatsu burst out from Byakuya Kachiki. At the same time, thousands of huge blades with their tips pointing upwards started from him and extended towards Uehara Shiraha. The huge blades were neatly arranged on both sides of Byakuya Kachiki, forming a daunting passage. Then, all the huge blades turned into petals like Shurkai's Senbenzakura and flew towards Uehara Shiraha. Uehara Shiraha moved, and Shuinpa moved, so fast that even the afterimage could not be seen. It's no use running away. Byakuya Kachiki was unusually calm. The power of Bankai Senbenzakura lies in the fact that billions of blades can attack in all directions and over a large area. While saying this, he used both hands to control the Senbenzakura blades to chase and intercept Uehara Shiraha. When controlled by both hands, the flying speed of the blades will be doubled, and no one can escape from such a storm of sharp blades. After dodging a few times, Uehara Shiraha was a little uninterested. He just wanted to know if he could escape from Senbenzakura's pursuit if he only used Shuinpa. The result was no pressure. In this form, Bankai Senbenzakura can only bully ordinary captains and cannot threaten Uehara Shiraha at all. In fact, Uehara Shiraha only used the advanced captain-level Shuinpa to easily get rid of Senbenzakura's overwhelming blades. It can only be said that Dabai at this time was still too naive. In this case, Uehara Shiraha simply stopped pretending. He suddenly stopped, and millions of blades completely enveloped him like a sea of red flowers. Give up? No. Byakuya Kachiki could no longer maintain his aloof expression and looked at Uehara Shiraha, who was cut into pieces but still safe and sound, with a shocked face. At this time, Uehara Shiraha was leisurely admiring the death flower dance in front of him and said leisurely, It's a nice view. Although the season has not arrived yet, it's nice to see the sakura flowers falling at this time. I have to say, Byakuya Kachiki's Bankai is pretty good. The captains who saw this scene were speechless again. Normal Ryatsu versus Bankai? Be a human being. You know, for Shinigami, vitality and defense are inherently weak points. Although Ryatsu can also provide defense, it is necessary to actively burst Ryatsu with all its strength to achieve the maximum defensive effect. But that consumes a lot of energy, which is totally not worth the loss. And Ryatsu can't burst whenever you want. It requires timing and charging time. Unless it is like the beast Zaraki Kenpachi, who can resist other people's attacks by relying on the basic scattered Ryatsu. So, Zaraki Kenpachi of the first team is called immortal. It was because Zaraki Kenpachi's defense and vitality were amazing. However, even this 11th generation Kenpachi could only defend against vice captain level attacks at most not captain-level attacks. But the scene in front of him was too incredible. Could it be that Uehara Shiraha was really that strong? Almost all the captains were shocked. Only Zaraki Kenpachi had a ferocious expression, opened his mouth, revealed his long and sharp teeth, and his hand holding the knife was trembling slightly. This was the battle he wanted, and this was the opponent he wanted. Kageyoshi, Senbenzakura Kageyoshi. At this time, Kachiki Bayu regained his composure and used the Bankai move. Under his control, countless pink Senbenzakura blades formed circles of pink haze, which looked very beautiful. However, the next second, these beautiful pink hazes turned into a huge sphere and completely enveloped Uehara Shiraha's figure, leaving no dead corners. When attacking, Byakuya Kachiki reminded, "This is a super powerful slash that combines billions of blades. The lethality is not comparable to that of ordinary Senbenzakura blades." Ice Age. Facing the super powerful slash that came straight down with an amazing strong wind, Uehara Shiraha drew out, splitting void, and slashed upwards. With Uehara Shiraha's light wave of his hand, the White Album was activated, and the slashing form of billions of Senbenzakura blades stopped instantly, and even the strong wind formed by the slashing also stopped. Under the surprised gaze of the captains, those blades quietly floated in the air, glowing with pink light, and gradually became crystal clear. This form of Senbenzakura is more beautiful than the previous one. What a powerful move! Ikamaru Jin put his hand on his forehead and looked up at the pink ice blade in the sky. Then he looked at Uehara Shiraha, who looked calm and relaxed, and sighed. But in comparison, the ability to freeze everything is still stronger. Fortunately, I lost in time. Silver, you have done a good job. It is General Uehara's strength that is too strong. Aizen still looks like a caring and warm man. Zaraki Kenpachi also frowned and muttered, "The damn freezing prevents me from cutting to my heart's content. It seems that I can't hold back this time." Except for a few thousand-year captains. The other captains looked up at the huge pink ice in the sky and thought about countermeasures silently. In the end, they all shook their heads. Byakuya Kachiki Senbenzakura was okay, but Uehara Shiraha's ability to freeze everything was too tricky. They even saw the shadow of the oldest and strongest heat-type Zampicut. Shirkai has such power, the strongest ice-type Zampicut. It seems that it is not all rumors. In comparison, the legendary Harimaru seems a bit unworthy of a name. Here, Uehara Shiraha walked straight towards Byakuya Kachiki and said calmly, "In front of me, the surging hot magma will stop, and the stormy sea will stop. This is the power of the white season. It seems that my Senbenzakura and your Zampicut are incompatible." After saying that, Byakuya Kachiki once again performed his ultimate move, Kageyoshi Senbenzakura, as he burst out Ryatsu with all his strength. The frozen Senbenzakura blade in the sky immediately broke free and spread to the surroundings. In the sky, the incomparable pink petals condensed into a sealed state Senbenzakura-style energy sword. Thousands of pink swords were suspended vertically in the air, forming several sword rings. Soon, a circular barrier composed of pink swords appeared in front of the two. Uehara Shiraha looked up and looked around with a relaxed expression. "Are you abandoning defense and wanting to attack with all your strength?" Because it was a sparring match, Byakuya Kachiki said a few more words. "Since large-scale attacks are ineffective against you, I can only attack with all my strength. Although I really don't want to use this sword-killing formation, I am really helpless. Generally speaking, facing the billions of Senbenzakura blades that are both offensive and defensive, the enemy will be in a panic and then be cut into pieces. No one can escape unscathed from the billions of blades flying at high speed." This was once a fact that Byakuya Kachiki firmly believed in. However, today, Uehara Shiraha broke this firmly believed fact. In desperation, Byakuya Kachiki could only use this move. Looking at the circular sword formation in the sky, all the captains were concentrating and watching this exciting battle carefully. They were looking forward to the power of this sword formation, and were even more curious whether Uehara Shiraha would be forced to use Bankai in the face of such a trick. And facing Byakuya Kichiki's other Bankai killer move, Uehara Shiraha still looked calm. With Byakuya Kichiki's wave of his hand, a sharp blade of the circular sword formation had already flown into his hand. After the pink energy blade was in hand, it immediately turned into the sealed state of the Senbenzakura form. Then, Byakuya Kichiki held the sharp blade, Shunpa flashed, and slashed towards Uehara Shiraha. This time, Uehara Shiraha was also slightly interested. He waved Splitting Void to block the attack. However, Byakuya Kichiki continued to reach out, and another pink long sword flew into his hand, quickly changing into the ordinary sealed state form Senbenzakura. On the circular sword formation, several pink sharp blades were also aimed at Uehara Shiraha. Then, the two had a series of high-speed exchanges. Shunpa, Kid, Zanjutsu, white hits were all open. It must be said that as a noble genius on par with Shiba Kaien, Byakuya Kichiki deserves his name of genius and captain status. Whether his Kid, white hits, Shunpa, or Zanjutsu, Byakuya Kichiki is impeccable. Among his peers, he is an absolute genius. However, every time Byakuya Kichiki showed a little bit of excellence, which the captains felt strange, he was completely suppressed by Uehara Shiraha in the same way. Ikamaru Jin, who had just lost, squinted his slender eyes and looked at the two people in the battle with a smile on his face, and I don't know what he was thinking in his heart. Why do I feel like Captain Kichiki is just a smaller version of Commander Uehara? Shiba was outspoken. Aizen smoothed things over. After all, he is the head of one of the 5 noble families, and he is excellent in all aspects. Nobles or commoners, this kind of thing doesn't matter. I have to chop enough. Zaraki Kinpachi looked at Uehara Shiraha, who was swinging freely on the stage with bloodthirsty eyes, and said in a low voice, "This is how you have to fight. Enjoy the battle. Enjoy the fight." He now looks like a gourmet who has discovered a delicacy. Now he just wants to have a life-and-death battle with Uehara Shiraha. Compared to the excited Zaraki Kinpachi and other captains with strange expressions, the captain of the 4th Division, Uno Hanaretsu, did not even raise her head, as if she was counting ants. Such a battle, such a killing technique, really did not make her excited. And all along, Uno Hanaretsu has been restraining herself from getting excited, and has been patient for a long time. After being repelled by Uehara Shiraha again, Byakuya Kichiki looked at the broken weapon in his hand in silence. What's wrong? Is it over? Uehara Shiraha was a little excited just now. I have to say that although the wizard is very handsome, there is still a strange pleasure in wielding a knife to cut people. Compared with ordinary captains, Byakuya Kichiki is strong in all aspects, and his slashing skills are not weak. But in front of Uehara Shiraha, who has advanced captain-level slashing skills, is still not enough. Byakuya Kichiki shook his head. The gap is too big. This is not a fight at all. I've been humiliating myself from beginning to end. If it is a life-and-death fight, Byakuya Kichiki will definitely use the final killer move, which is Final Scene White Emperor's Sword. But now it is just a sparring fight. He is not fighting to kill the enemy, but just to prove himself. Even if he defeats Uehara Shiraha with the final trick. And the most important thing is that Byakuya Kichiki has a hunch that even if he uses the White Emperor's Sword, he may not be able to defeat Uehara Shiraha in Shirkai state. When he was in doubt, he decisively chose to stop. After that, he will practice even harder, and he will kill all doubts and weaknesses. As a captain, you are already excellent. Uehara Shiraha also praised Byakuya Kichiki. After all, he is the handsome guy second only to himself in appearance, and his ability to pretend is also outstanding. I remember the first time Baymax appeared, he was also pretending to be strong. Then, he was first beaten by Bankai Strawberry, and then Ikamaru Jin said something heart-wrenching, and he almost died. In the 1,000-year blood battle, he was beaten to his last words, and the only thing missing was the final settlement animation. It seems that he was handsome for just one appearance, and the rest were, "Get out if you lose." With a roar like a beast, Zaraki Kenpachi rushed over and shouted, "Come and fight to your heart's content. Uehara Shiraha." After that, he swung a sword. Boom! With a loud bang, the terrifying slash directly cut through the rocks on the martial arts field. Sand and stones flew, and a big pit appeared on the spot. The martial arts arena is made of the best and hardest materials, which can withstand the attacks of ordinary captains. But under Zaraki Kenpachi's slash, it was as fragile as tofu. Seeing the scene in front of him, Byakuya Kachiki frowned slightly, and then Shunpa flashed and came to the stage. Looking at Zaraki Kenpachi, who jumped up impatiently, Uehara Shiraha said helplessly, "You are beating me like Lubu. I'm tired. How about next time?" Mainly fighting Ikamaru Jin and Byakuya Kachiki, he can do nothing. Fighting with Zaraki Kenpachi, a beast, will not make you feel so relaxed. For others, fighting is just a means, not an end. Just like robbers rob to get money and to enjoy life better. But for Zaraki Kenpachi, robbing is enjoyment. This guy enjoys the process of fighting and the fun of chopping people, not the result of fighting. This guy gets more excited the more he fights, and there is no pleasure in winning. How can there be a next time? Zaraki Kenpachi pulled off his eye patch. "I'm already firing on all cylinders now. Don't try to freeze me. Come and fight and kill." As the right eye patch fell off, a golden beam of light shot up into the sky. The air around the beam of light seemed to be pierced, and electric sparks appeared. The spirit particles in the atmosphere trembled constantly, and even the space was slightly distorted. Wherever Ryatsu passed, countless fragments floated. The boundless, bloody, murderous intent and the terrifying Ryatsu scattered everywhere, causing the barrier around the Mao Grand Martial Arts field to tremble. Looking at this amazing scene, all the captains were shocked. No wonder Captain Zaraki was able to defeat the previous Kenpachi without Bankai. This Ryatsu is really too strong. Shiba sighed. Ikamaru Jin narrowed his eyes and said, "It's really a monster." Looking at Zaraki Kenpachi's crazy face, Aizen also frowned slightly, and then quickly switched to a shocked expression, as expected of the captain of the battle team. "Much better than me, who is not good at fighting. What a barbarian style." Looking at the eye mask thrown away by Zaraki Kenpachi, Kuratsuchi Mayuri was a little unhappy. He spent a lot of time to develop this eye mask, which was completely in accordance with Zaraki Kenpachi's requirements. It absorbs Zaraki Kenpachi's Ryatsu at any time. So Zaraki Kenpachi, wearing the eye mask, will reduce some of his strength. It must be said that this beast Ryatsu is indeed very strong. But his product is perfect, which effectively limits the beast's Ryatsu. And such a perfect product, this beast doesn't know how to cherish it. What a barbarian. Chapter 56, Uehara Shiraha's Bankai. Zaraki Kenpachi's full-strength Ryatsu was so powerful that even a multi-layered large barrier could not completely block it. The first team members and Kid, who were at the edge of the barrier, were the first to be hit and were completely covered by Zaraki Kenpachi's Ryatsu. In an instant, they saw their bodies pierced by sharp blades, and it was as if they saw the grandmother who had died many years ago waving at them. Without any surprise, the eyes of these Shinigami turned white, and they fell to the ground one after another. Okiga Jinshiro, who was talking to Chur Sasakaibe, was also shocked and immediately rushed to the fallen people. Chur Sasakaibe, also Shunpa, went over and sent the fallen Shinigami to a safe place. "Are they okay?" After the rescue was completed, Okiga Jinshiro was a little worried. Chur Sasakaibe shook his head. "It's not a big problem, it's just that a lot of Ryatsu was consumed in a short period of time, so the physical strength is exhausted. When sensing a strong Ryatsu, Shinigami will instinctively use Ryatsu to fight against it. If the difference in strength between the two sides is too great, the weaker one will be powerless and collapse to the ground until he loses consciousness. I never dreamed that the boy would grow to this level in a short time." Okiga Jinshiro looked at the arena and the barrier. But is it really okay? That's Zaraki Kenpachi, a man who claims to have an immortal body. Over the years, Zaraki Kenpachi has killed countless enemies, and his outstanding achievements have made him a famous iron-blooded man. compared with the captains of other squads. Such a war ghost who has killed countless people is more deadly and more terrifying. Sure, Sasuke said calmly. If this boy didn't have some skills, the captain-in-chief would not agree to this competition. For him who has seen mountains of corpses and seas of blood, this murderous aura is just a small scene. The first generation Godei 13, who were all ruthless back then, had a much stronger impact than this. At the same time, all the Shinigami of Siriidei, including the chief officer and the vice captain, suddenly changed color and looked in panic in the direction of the terrifying Ryatsu. Looking at the golden light column rising into the sky in the distance, they were all talking. Is this a Ryatsu light column? Too exaggerated. What happened? I heard it was a captain's assessment. Captains are monsters. The captain actually unlocked the restrictions right away and released all the Ryatsu. On a roof with golden tiles, Madarame Ikaku was stunned for a moment and used his spiritual sense to carefully perceive. After a while, he sighed. It turned out to be the man who defeated me. If it were you, you could really let the captain fight with all his strength. It would be a great battle, so great. Iasegawa Yumachika, next to him, put his hands on his ears and also used his spiritual sense to perceive the situation in the martial arts field, although it is not clear because of the barrier. But such a strong two people fighting with all their strength is very beautiful no matter what. Even I can feel the passion. He could not fully agree with the 11th Division's pursuit of excitement in the battle style. However, he could feel the shining personality charm of Captain Madarame Ikaku and Zaraki. This is probably the so-called enlightenment. Well, Kim will be very happy. At this time, Kusajishi Yichiro flashed and appeared on the roof. Then his face turned black, and he said angrily, "It will be better to teach that bad guy, Xiao Yu, a lesson. He always steals snacks and bullies me." If she could not beat Uehara Shiraha, she would have kicked this BD out of the Female Shinigami Association. As for the red-haired Abarai Renji, who was watching the wind downstairs, he looked at the direction of the martial arts field with a longing face. Now he is pursuing power, and the Captain Zaraki Kenpachi is the symbol of power. At the same time, in the 10th Division's dormitory, the third seat Hitsugaya picked up the Harinru and continued to practice Bankai. Practice is not enough. At this time, facing Zaraki Kenpachi's amazing Ryatsu, Uehara Shiraha complained. That's why I said I was tired, feeling the overwhelming fighting spirit transmitted from Zaraki Kenpachi. He couldn't help but get a little serious. It must be said that fighting with a war maniac like Zaraki Kenpachi can easily inspire fighting spirit. Even Ichigo Buddha, who has always wanted to live a peaceful life, felt the joy of sit-ups, fighting from the battle with Zaraki Kenpachi. Looking at the two people on the stage, the captains' hearts were hanging. Several ordinary captains even had a sense of horror. Both of them are just Shurkai, and it is incredible that they can give them such a lot of pressure. The case is solved. These two are monsters. Even Uno Hanaretsu, who has always been showing the posture of Yamato Nadeshiko, finally moved slightly. Suifeng was a little calmer. She had thought that even if Ikamaru Jin and Byakuya Kachiki could not defeat Uehara Shiraha, Captain Zaraki would definitely be able to defeat Uehara Shiraha. After all, this man was the famous Kenpachi of Siriidei, known as the strongest fighter with an immortal body. But now Suifeng felt that as long as she could force out Uehara Shiraha's Bankai, she would win. It was really too difficult to defeat Uehara Shiraha. Come on, cut first. This is what you deserve. Zaraki Kenpachi, who was so excited that he couldn't help himself, tore open his clothes, his eyes full of enthusiasm for killing and fighting. Uehara Shiraha said helplessly, "You still remember this. In this case, I won't be polite." After that, he chopped out with a knife without hesitation. It looked like an ordinary knife, but it was actually very lethal. The high-level captain-level slashing technique was not that simple. This is because Uehara Shiraha did not use Breath of the Sun and 7 flashes. Otherwise, even a 1,000-year-old captain-level warrior would not be able to withstand it. It doesn't hurt at all. You can't be just this ability? Zaraki Kenpachi's eyes became extremely cold. You should be serious. If you make me bored again like the last few times, I will definitely chop you to death. He hasn't felt this kind of blood boiling for a long time. If his hope is dashed, he will definitely lose his mind. The problem is you, not me. Uehara Shiraha was a little helpless. Like Ichigo Buddha, this Zaraki Kenpachi is also a spring man. The greater the pressure, the stronger the strength, the weaker the enemy, the weaker you are. Kurosaki Ichigo's strength depends on his mood, and he almost never uses all his strength against the enemy. Except for his mother's murderer, Yawatch, Kurosaki Ichigo has never had the intention to kill. This is similar to the high school student Jotaro Kujo, who is afraid that the school is not violent enough. Of course, Tsukishima, the Minotaur who danced wildly on the edge of death, is out of the question. Not to mention Kurosaki Ichigo. Even if it was Konoha's Prince Naruto, he would still probably choose to forgive him. As for Zaraki Kenpachi, it's very simple, just to ensure that the strength is similar to that of the enemy and enjoy the fighting process. In addition, like Ichigo Buddha, Zaraki Kenpachi also appeared at the maximum level and had the upper hand in the battle with Uehara Shiraha 1,000 years ago. But because he was afraid that he would not be able to find an opponent after killing Uehara Shiraha, he sealed most of his strength. When fighting with a strong man, he will slowly unlock part of the seal and release the real power. When the battle is over, he will seal his strength again. In fact, Uehara Shiraha has always been very curious about where this guy learned the seal. It's so useful. Just now, even an ordinary captain would have to lie down with Uehara Shiraha's knife. But Zaraki Kenpachi was fine. It's obvious that this guy is cheating. Perhaps because he was too afraid of the freezing ability. This time, Zaraki Kenpachi immediately unsealed a part of the seal. Although the current Zaraki Kenpachi is not as good as the bloody battle Shirkai state. He is basically at full firepower. This state is probably not far from Shirkai, a senior captain level. It seems that it is time to show real skills. At this time, Zaraki Kenpachi finally reacted. What? It turns out that I was too excited and accidentally used too much power. As expected, if you want to kill happily, you need to control your power. I don't want to end too quickly. But if it's you, there must be no problem. Uehara Shiraha's eyes lit up when she saw the sudden increase in strength of Zaraki Kenpachi from the audience. At this moment, her silent heart gradually became active. You forced me to do this. Don't blame me for being cruel. Uehara Shiraha felt that this was a rare opportunity, so he decided to show some manly romance and drive a mecha. After that, he raised Splitting Void flatly, pointing the tip of the sword at Zaraki Kenpachi, Bankai, Frostmourne. Seeing this scene, all the captains were shocked. Several captains exclaimed in unison, "Could it be? Is it finally here?" Kuratsuchi Mayuri's golden pupils were full of excitement and anticipation. That guy's Bankai. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. It's really interesting. Let me see what you have hidden after all. Suifeng clenched his fists and whispered, "I will use my own eyes to see how big the gap between you and me is." It's terrible. It's really terrible. Ikemura Jin's tone was as unpleasant as ever. Even Yamamoto, Jinryu Sai, Shigekuni, and Uehara Shiraha turned their eyes to Uehara Shiraha's Zanpakuto. First, a white Ryatsu light column shot up into the sky. Then there was an extremely heavy, extremely terrifying, and extremely cold breath. At the same time, layers of ice condensed on Uehara Shiraha and the blade. A complex, exquisite, heavy, and epic armor gradually appeared. The weapon in Uehara Shiraha's hand also turned into a gorgeous big sword with evil spirit and full of haki. Finally, an armored man, wearing a white one-piece heavy armor, appeared in front of everyone. At this time, Uehara Shiraha wore a moon-white four-cornered crown on his head, and behind him was a pure white cloak that fluttered. His whole body was covered in airtight heavy armor, and his shoulders were also strong and shining shoulder armor. And Uehara Shiraha held a blue and white double-edged sword in his hand. The sword was condensed with blue runes and white frost. If a WoW fan from his previous life saw this scene, he would definitely exclaim, "FK, Frostmourne, King O." Uehara Shiraha's outfit was modeled after the Lich King Arthas. The white album can condense the moisture in the air to form external armor, and the perfect level of proficiency can ensure that every detail is lifelike. Even the famous Filial Sun Sword is a one-to-one replica. The Filial Sun Sword is a special weapon for Frostmourne to kill the king, a weapon for the lower to overthrow the upper, and a natural counter to Uehara, the pirate king who likes to recognize his son. After Bankai, Uehara Shiraha casually waved Frostmourne in his hand. In an instant, the majestic Ryatsu shook the world, and the invisible power of ice froze everything. The surrounding barrier also began to shrink and tremble, looking overwhelmed. I was just overwhelmed by Zaraki Kenpachi's powerful. The captains who were shocked by Ryatsu instantly felt a sense of fear that everything would be destroyed and all living things would be devastated. At this time, Uehara Shiraha's Ryatsu was much stronger than Zaraki Kenpachi, and much stronger than they expected. The few ordinary captains who could barely bear it before were now a little overwhelmed. In addition, all the captains felt a sudden bone-chilling chill. Cold, icy, freezing the soul. This Ryatsu, this Bankai. Looking at Uehara Shiraha's flamboyant, gorgeous, and aggressive Bankai, Kaiaraka Shunsui sighed. No wonder Brother Baiyu doesn't open Bankai easily, I understand. He thought that only he had hidden a powerful and terrifying Bankai. Unexpectedly, Brother Baiyu's Bankai was so powerful and to his taste. Kaiaraku Shunsui once again felt the mutual appreciation between the two old silver coins. Shiba also complained, I feel that General Uehara's Bankai seems to be a different style from ours. The other captains nodded with sympathy. No matter how strong or weak their Bankai are, most of them have the kind of affiliation. Uehara Shiraha's Bankai is very gorgeous, very eye-catching, very powerful, and very impactful. Bankai with exposed haki like Uehara Shiraha is really too rare. Just then, Suifeng felt his body stiffen and heard Kamimura Sajin's exclamation, Captain Suifeng, what's wrong? Suifeng looked up at Kamimura Sajin, but found that the barrel-shaped helmet opposite had turned white, and 64.3 was condensed with frost. She hurriedly wiped her face with her hand, only to feel extremely cold. At this time, the captains were surprised to find that they didn't know when. A layer of frost had condensed on their clothes and bodies. Retreat outside the barrier. At this time, Yamamoto Jinryusai, Shigekuni flashed and retreated. Kaiaraku Shunsui warned, It's coming. Get out of the way. Everyone looked up and saw a layer of white frost-like cold air rushing over. The captains did not dare to be careless and hurriedly shuinpa to the outside of the barrier. At the same time, they could not help but look at the gorgeous long sword in Uehara Shiraha's hand with shock. Is this Frostmourne? Too scary. Here it comes again. This time Ryatsu is even more terrifying. Is it Captain Zaraki? No, this is outside the barrier. Okiya Jinshiro could not help complaining. At this time, Shjur Sasakai, next to the barrier, seemed to sense something and then quickly retreated. What's wrong? Okiya Jinshiro asked in confusion. Shjur Sasakai hurriedly said, Take them away from here quickly. It's dangerous. While saying this, he quickly evacuated the Shinigami, who fell to the ground. I thought this distance was safe enough. Even if Zaraki Kenpachi continued to burst Ryatsu, there would be no problem. But I didn't expect someone even more ruthless. He was fine, but those Shinigami who fell to the ground couldn't hold on. Is this the boys' Bankai? At this time, Okiya Jinshiro seemed to have thought of something. Shjur Sasakai nodded solemnly. The two hurriedly sent all the Shinigami who fell to the ground to a farther distance. Behind them, a group of captains also shunpa to the side of the barrier. Chapter 57. The destructive power of a natural disaster. The slashing collision that tears apart the heaven and earth at this moment. The temperature of the entire Suriidii suddenly dropped a few degrees. All the Shinigami felt the cold, oppressive, and terrifying Ryatsu. Because of the distance and the barrier, they didn't feel much when they felt Zaraki Kenpachi's Ryatsu. They just felt that this Ryatsu was very strong. But at this moment, they were like being in the ice and snow, with cold hands and feet, and trembling all over. They really felt an unprecedented sense of fear and oppression, as if they were hit hard. Several people from the 11th Squadron who were closer to the martial arts field couldn't even use their Ryatsu freely, as if they were frozen. When the Shinigami of the Imperial Army, Ayase Nanao, Hinamori Momo, Rukia, and Matsumoto Ranjaku felt the familiar Ryatsu, they all exclaimed, "It's the Commander-in-Chief, Uehara Teacher, Shiraha." At this time, they realized that the one fighting Zaraki Kenpachi was actually Uehara Shiraha. At the same time, they were full of confidence in Uehara Shiraha. The teacher will never lose. That man will never do anything without confidence. At this time, the captain outside the barrier was also looking at the amazing scene in front of him with shocked eyes. Ever since Uehara Shiraha opened Bankai, endless cold air has spread. Frost condensed in the air, and white frost began to cover the earth. By now, the entire martial arts arena has completely turned into a world of ice and snow. Those cut stone pillars and shattered rocks have been covered with a thick layer of white ice armor. The biting cold wind and scattered frost made the entire martial arts arena seem to have entered the cold winter in advance. It was just a sunny day. Even through the barrier, the captains could see obvious white air when they breathed. If there is no barrier to block it, it will be bad. Shiba Jushin's expression also became solemn. This natural disaster like Bankai is too terrifying. Kairaku Shunsui couldn't help but look at the old man with his eyes closed. I don't know if Uehara Shiraha will become a monster like the old man in the future. Tosin Kiname also let go of his spiritual sense and paid attention to this battle, thinking to himself, Zaraki Kenpachi is indeed a monster. People like this who put fighting above the rules of Seriidii will bring disaster sooner or later. Point 29 My justice does not allow such hidden dangers to exist. And this Uehara Shiraha, he had a hunch that this Uehara Shiraha might become an obstacle to their plan. At this time, on the arena, in the endless cold, Zaraki Kenpachi held the sword with one hand. He placed the slender Zampiket with a certain arc horizontally in front of him. Even though his right hand did not move at all, the blade was still trembling slightly under the impact of Uehara Shiraha's Ryatsu. Zaraki Kenpachi said with satisfaction, I haven't enjoyed the feeling of sharpening the blade with only the enemy's Ryatsu for a long time. I really miss it. After saying that, he raised Zampiket, pointed the broken blade like a sawtooth at Uehara Shiraha, and began to gather strength. Aren't you cold? Uehara Shiraha's somewhat dull voice came from under the helmet. Obviously, he has already unfolded the power of the stand. Why is this guy not affected at all? Zaraki Kenpachi said disdainfully, I've been frozen by you several times, and my body has adapted to the cold. Before, he challenged Uehara Shiraha many times. But every time, let alone having fun, he didn't have a chance to draw his sword. It was really too frustrating. So this time, Zaraki Kenpachi was ready to chop it all at once. While Zaraki Kenpachi was accumulating the power to chop, Uehara Shiraha was not idle either, and he also improved his Ryatsu. This made the captains watching even more frightened. It had come to this point, but the two couldn't continue to improve their Ryatsu. Don't these two monsters have any limits? At this time, Zaraki Kenpachi was highly focused. He had never vented his power so recklessly as he did now. Normally, Zaraki Kenpachi would carefully restrain his power, just because he was afraid that his opponent would die too quickly, and then there would be no fun. But now he had an intuition. If he didn't use all his strength, he wouldn't be a threat to Uehara Shiraha at all. If he couldn't cut the enemy, it couldn't be called a battle, and it would be too boring. In a moment, Zaraki Kenpachi accumulated his strength and slashed at Uehara Shiraha fiercely. This was the strongest strike he had made since he came to Seriidii. There is no language to describe this ultimate strike. The terrifying strike locked Uehara Shiraha's body and will, and even seemed to lock the time and space around him. This strike could not be dodged or blocked. This was the terrifying part of a master of slashing. One strike could kill instantly, no matter how powerful you were. This was the so-called one sword breaks all laws, and of course it was also called great power. Ichigo Buddha relied on the crescent moon sky strike to go back and forth, fully explaining what it meant to have great power to create miracles. And Zaraki Kenpachi's strike was a miracle that could cut through everything. Uehara Shiraha held Frostmourne in one hand and slashed at the opponent's sword light. Without any verbal communication or eye contact, the two weapons collided with each other. The white Ryatsu and the golden Ryatsu wrapped around the two weapons also collided with each other. In an instant, the aftermath of the collision completely covered the place where the two fought like an energy shield. The next second, the shield was broken and countless slash waves rushed in all directions with terrible impact force. The high-rise arena was torn apart by the slash waves in an instant. Each slash wave cut a huge gully that was big enough for 4 or 5 people to walk together. Several bottomless pits caused the arena to collapse completely. Only the area where the two people stood was still intact. Then, the barriers surrounding the arena began to tremble and deform, and obvious cracks appeared. Although Kuratsuchi Mayuri had considered the strength of ordinary captains fighting at full strength when setting up the barrier, he did not expect that the two people in the duel would be two monsters. Under the impact of the two slashes that seemed to be able to destroy the world, the originally indestructible barrier became precarious. Not good. Kairaku, Shunsui, also reacted and hurriedly stepped forward to deliver calm pressure. Uno Hanaretsu also followed closely. With the joint support of the 2,000-year captains, the barrier finally stabilized. It's impossible, my skills were defeated by brute force. Kuratsuchi Mayuri was shocked when she saw this. At this moment, all the captains were speechless. Such a duel was too shocking. When the dust settled, the completely destroyed arena and two motionless figures finally appeared. The captains were very curious. Who won? On the two protruding high ground like cliffs, Uehara Shiraha and Zaraki Kenpachi had passed by each other and exchanged positions. In a short period of time, several huge gullies had appeared between the two. Each gully represents the aftermath of a slash collision. Countless frosts quickly condensed in the gullies, freezing them again. This arena, and even the terrain of the entire arena, was destroyed by the slash and the cold, and was completely scrapped. One amazing fighting instinct. Uehara Shiraha looked down at the white marks on the ice armor. I want to chop off your head with one knife. But you avoided the vital point in an instant, and even slashed me, because I know that this guy's vitality is comparable to that of a cockroach, and he will become more courageous and stronger with more setbacks. In order to prevent any two-handed form or meteorite slashing form, Uehara Shiraha just opened the power of the stand to the strongest. At the moment of the collision, the Zanpakuto in Zaraki Kenpachi's hand became as fragile as the cold breath of the great super. The next thing is simple. Uehara Shiraha chopped the opponent's weapon and slashed the aorta with one knife. Unexpectedly, at the critical moment, Zaraki Kenpachi turned his body to avoid the vital point and swung the broken sword to hit himself. Although Uehara Shiraha was protected by external armor and universal barrier, it was impossible for him to be hurt, but he still had to be praised. Although Zaraki Kenpachi was sometimes very reckless, it did not mean that he would just rush without thinking. In fact, Zaraki Kenpachi has amazing combat intuition and is a real beast. Don't look at the correct version of the demon hunter Tosin Kaname in the distance, who is staring at Zaraki Kenpachi. But in the traveling disasters, Tosin Kaname's Bankai was cracked by Zaraki Kenpachi's intuition and touch. He can quickly dodge the blade at the moment of the blade approaching, and even grab the enemy's wrist to counterattack. His reaction ability, combat intuition, and combat awareness are all amazing. Zaraki Kenpachi looked at his broken sword and the huge wound on his chest that was covered with frost and shouted angrily, "Is it over? Impossible. This is just the beginning. Move my body." However, his consciousness began to blur. At the last moment, Zaraki Kenpachi could only say unwillingly, next time, I will definitely." Countless frost covered him, freezing his last words in his throat. "Although I know what you want to say, I don't really want to hear it. Uehara Shiraha shrugged and retracted the power of the White Album. I admit that your characteristic of becoming stronger as you fight is terrifying, but if I kill you with one sword, how will you deal with it? It turns out that Zaraki Kenpachi has no way to deal with it. Sure enough, no matter which world it is, those who can't do sit-ups are just ants. As Uehara Shiraha released the power of the stand, the surrounding ice and snow world gradually returned to normal. The helmet on his body also fell off and disappeared, revealing a handsome and confident face. He easily defeated 3 people without even sweating. Outside the barrier, looking at Zaraki Kenpachi, who was frozen tightly, almost all the captains were shocked and speechless. At this moment, they couldn't believe what was happening before their eyes. That beast, the 11th generation Kenpachi, the man who was known as the strongest, was defeated, and the defeat was so clean and neat, without any suspense. Suifeng's delicate face was full of shock, and he murmured to himself, "So this is the gap."
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.